say before? Thank you, Carrie. Please turn off all your cell phones or have them on mute so we don't have any rings in the middle of our meeting. People on Zoom, another reminder, please be muted and have your videos off. Thank you. We have a large crowd, obviously. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you guys are here. This just means the Sisters community is passionate and appreciates what's going on, and I'm glad you all are here. When someone's talking, please be quiet so everybody can hear the person that's actually talking. And a small reminder, while this is a public meeting, this particular workshop is for the City Council to talk with the presenters. There is no public input in this portion of the meeting. Again, this is the workshop. You'll have an opportunity to speak at the 6:30 City Council meeting where you can provide public comment at the very beginning. And you're obviously more than welcome to do so. So I encourage you to do that if you want to speak before us. But this first hour is a workshop for us to talk to the cold weather shelter. They're the only people on the agenda, and that's what we'll be discussing for about an hour. So I think our city manager, Jordan, is going to launch us into the meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council and members of the public. I think we maybe have about half the town here tonight, but it's good that so many folks turned for this issue. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank the applicant for coming tonight to present their proposal to staff and the City Council and the public. This is a unique workshop item tonight. It is a presentation and listening session regarding the application for the proposed emergency shelter at 2 West Barclay Avenue. I'm joined by Scott Woodford, our Development Services Director. So I want to thank him for working on processing the application. And thank you to Carrie Prosser, our Assistant City Manager, for also being on that team on the processing of the application. And of course, thank you to the board members of the shelter for coming tonight and their plans. Other shelter to present their plans to the council and to the public, allow the opportunity for the City Council to ask questions and learn more about the plans, and ask staff questions as well about the process, and provide the opportunity for the community to provide their thoughts. And that will be available immediately after the workshop during the visitor communication at 6:30. I do want to note that this is not a public hearing or a land use application process, and no decision will be made on the application tonight. The decision on the application will be based on the review criteria in the state law. In terms of the agenda, Scott, staff will be providing a brief overview of the legislation, the criteria that were required to apply to the application for emergency shelter. Garrett Kruschek will be giving a brief review of the procedural aspects of these types of applications. And then the applicant, Sisters Cold Weather Shelter board members will be presenting their application and plans for council to question and ask questions of staff. And we hope to do our review in a brief manner so we can get right to the presentation, the Q&A, since we do just have an hour this evening. Council, you've received a lot of written comments, and staff has received a lot of written comments on the application, which we provided to the City Council for the record. And then again, I just want to share that we will have the opportunity for public comment immediately following the council meeting at 6:30 during the visitor communication. So with that, I will turn it over to Scott, who's going to give you a brief summary of the application and the criteria.
Thank you, Jordan, and thank you, public, and welcome. Just wanted to provide an overview of the status of the application. We received an application on June 27th of this year by the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter, who's the applicant. It's still under review. No decisions have been made. Staff is, per the House bill, is required to review it per the criteria laid out in House Bill 2006, which was also updated and amended in late June. And that bill is called House Bill 3395. So there were a few minor tweaks to the bill. I'm sorry.
Stay close to it, sorry. Thank you.
Okay. All right. There were a few minor tweaks that were made as part of House Bill 3395 that affect the review. One of those has to do with the eligibility of the organization. Previously, it said that you'd had to have be a nonprofit since 2018. That was amended to read that it is required to be 3 years prior to the date of application. So there is some pretty specific criteria in the bill that we're required to follow, and if it meets the criteria, we're required as a city to approve it. There are some of the criteria is very objective, and some of it is a little subjective, and I think that's was maybe by design by the drafters, but includes some examples of what the criteria are, that the facilities must include sleeping in restroom facilities. They says they will comply with the building code. It doesn't say that it does comply with the building code right now. It's just, can it comply with the building code? And I've been in contact with the building department. We contract our building department services with Deschutes County, and they've outlined some of the requirements for upgrades that would need to be put in place at various times. So, you know, if this thing were to be approved, a condition of approval would be that it would comply with the building codes as applicable. Another criteria is that it has adequate transportation access to commercial and medical services. One other one is, and a big one we've been hearing from, is will not pose any unreasonable risk to public health or safety. I think the word unreasonable was specifically put in there. It's not to say that it will not pose any risk. Will it pose any unreasonable risk? And of course, that's incumbent upon the communities to figure out what unreasonable means. And then there's more the black and white requirements that I mentioned, the eligibility requirements. One, that it be a public benefit in this case. The applicable one is that it be a public benefit corporation whose charitable purposes include support of homeless individuals. And then I mentioned the 3-year date. You know, the application date, as mentioned, was June 27th, 2023. The effective date of their exemption is August 12th, 2020. So as proposed, it doesn't comply with that requirement. But I would note that there's nothing in the bill that would not allow them to resubmit their application at a different date and potentially be in compliance with that provision. As I mentioned, we haven't made
the shelter.
Committed to the neighbors and the folks that have raised objection that we wouldn't issue a decision of any sort until we've had this opportunity in this forum for the public to hear from the applicants and for the council to be able to ask their questions. So once we have all the adequate information available, you know, we would be able to make a decision by within a week. We're not guided by the land use laws, which have a 120-day limitation. There is no similar time restriction associated with this, but obviously a decision should be made in a timely manner once all the information is available. And I just would offer to anybody who's interested to continue to consult the city's website. There's a page on the city's website devoted to this application, and that's where you can get all the up-to-date information on what's going on and what the next steps are. And so if you go on the project website or on the homepage and click what's happening, that'll take you right to that page. With that, I'll just pass it on to our City Attorney, Garrett Crosscheck, who's going to just discuss a few procedural aspects about the bill that are pertinent to the review.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, thanks, Scott. And he actually largely covered most of what I intended to say. So let me just generally say I concur with what Scott has said about kind of the background and the substance of the bills, and also kind of the general kind of path that is required of the city in processing this application. And when it was taken out of the land use decision context, you know, certainly depending on your perspective, there's some pros and cons of that. From the city's perspective, it means that we're largely tasked to develop our own procedures for processing it. So that's where we've come to tonight with kind of this hybridish approach. Again, I guess want to stress that where it has made sense, we've certainly followed sort of traditional model, and that includes, producing a record, reviewing it, and at the culmination of this thing, issuing a written decision, just like what would occur in a land use context. If once that decision is issued, if somebody were to appeal it, the big distinction, of course, is that it doesn't go to LUBA. It may end up in circuit court. There hasn't been much, if any, litigation surrounding these types of applications. I'm only aware of one particular lawsuit involving an emergency shelter out of Multnomah County. However, my understanding is it resulted in a stipulated judgment of dismissal. So I'm not sure whether or not that will actually inform us today, but I'm continuing to see what I can't get from those that were involved in it. But that's kind of the landscape. So I'm here to answer any questions, and of course, it's been stated, not a hearing, not a decision tonight, but an opportunity for more information, more listening.
All right, thank you very much. Do you want to introduce our guests?
Sure, I think I'll introduce the board chair for the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter, Louis Blanchard, who I think can introduce his team as well for the presentation from their group tonight.
All right, thank you. And you guys, like the rest of us, speak right into the microphone so everybody can hear you. We got a full room today. Thank you.
You got it. Well, thank you very much for having us to hopefully clarify some of the misstatements that were just the fog around this particular issue that we've seen in the community. But first, I'd just like to introduce my board. There are two that are out of town at this particular time, but Jim and Diane Pritchett, they've been part of the shelter since its conception in late 2016. Sharon Thorkinson, who is our treasurer, and she does a wonderful job keeping our records. How long have you been on board?
3 years.
So she's been on board 3 years. And again, to my left, Mandy Seeley, who was a founding member and advocate for the houseless, honorary member of our group, and has been essentially my right-hand person when we've been dealing with these legal issues. So I thank you for that. Thank you again for having us. If you don't mind, I'd like to read just a little excerpt that I offered to the city council I'm sorry, forgive me. Louis Blanchard, I thought everybody in the town knows it, with a target on my back, but again.
And who are the other two board members that can't make it?
Yes, we have Charlene Weed and also Molly Jones. Molly Jones, forgive me. And Jill Edsmore, forgive me, she's also in the office. So if you can't tell, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not used to being in front of individuals like this. I'm much better in the field with the houseless. So hopefully we can get back to doing that. So I'd like to read this to everyone that's listening at this point. Respectfully, Sisters Cold Weather Shelter wants to address Sisters City Council about obtaining acceptance to site our emergency shelter on 192 North Barkley Road. The proposed project will serve as an emergency shelter dictated by the increasingly threatening weather conditions that affect our community. Though it's been our history to accommodate weather conditions, that affect our community, houseless individuals, the shelter is especially interested in displaced families and elderly that reside in our community. The building has been toured by Deschutes County's regional superintendent and Sisters/Camp Sherman fire marshals, where we received their approval to house up to 40 individuals with a minimal upgrade to egress and fire monitoring. In prior years, we have housed an average about 10 to 12 individuals per night. The additional beds would be an asset to the community if the need arises to accommodate those whose homes may not serve them adequately in adverse weather. Outside of the housing and those emergency conditions, we will operate as an advocates for providing individuals with basic needs like hygiene, nutrition, connecting them to services such as permanent housing vouchers, transitional housing, and assistance applying social services like disability and the Oregon Health Plan. We are discussing with Deschutes Behavioral Health to facilitate their specialists in one of our office spaces in the building for consultations. Family Kitchen has been serving free hot meals for many years and is excited to offer them to our occupants and others who might face food insecurities. Another potential partner who may also be utilizing our space is the Citizens Leadership Initiative, CLI, which currently is servicing the wooded areas for trash and offering water to those who are camped in our first line of outreach. Part of the grant provides funds for staffing, executive director position, to manage our day-to-day operations, and working with our current coordinator to connect individuals to services in and around the county. The second funded staff position is, excuse me, our resource navigator specialist. This individual will work alongside the county specialist who is overworked due to the ever-increasing need and is only present in our community a few days a week. To have this specialist is such an asset in understanding our vulnerable community's needs. Currently, our community is grateful to have a liaison with the local Forest Service that continues to build trust so we, as advocates, can tie these individuals to services and build community and collate data for the state's HMI, Houses Management Information System, which is utilized to prioritize needs and resources. Sisters will get all of this, and approving our submission is our tax dollars being spent in our community. In summary, by reiterating how this generous gift has been a blessing to our community, the volunteers who have given so much of themselves over the years have earned a facility to work out of and to store the provisions shared among our vulnerable neighbors. The ability of partners with similar missions, all collaborating from a single facility, is immeasurable. And finally, it is our duty to serve others who have, in many cases, fallen into demise not of their doing. And I hear this isn't a city, but a community. So I ask the city to show us a true community spirit. Thank you.
Okay. I think at this point, there are lots of questions. I think all five of us as city councilors have questions. Gary Ross, our fifth councilor, is here on Zoom, I believe. Is he on there?
He is.
Okay, thank you, Gary. I appreciate that. So all five of us are here in spirit, if not in person. Before we get going, I just did want to say we've gotten many, many letters, both in support and against this shelter. There are no decisions that are truly going to be made today. This is a question and answer, trying to figure out how to handle this. We're here to represent the people, the sisters in the community. We haven't had a public meeting since the first meeting in July. We only do 2 a month. And the last meeting, public meeting that we had, the application was in, but it hadn't been hardly looked at the time. So this is our first opportunity to talk about this. And the reason that's important is because we've heard a lot of things saying that we're doing a lot of things behind the scenes without public input. That's not true. We've heard that we haven't talked about it enough, or had a public process. That's what we're doing here today. So this is the first public meeting addressing this issue. And it is what it is. Today is the day to talk about it. With that, our council is going to ask questions of the cold weather shelter. And Andrea Blum, our city councilor and council president, she's been working on this issue more than most of us. And I'd really like her to go first if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Okay, start us off.
Louis, in the information that we've received from you, you indicated that members of your board have met with other organizations and other communities that are doing similar work. And so you have a good idea of the problems that they may have incurred when they first started up, and hopefully are learning from that so that you will be able to run this facility from the get-go, even though you are lucky that you are going to be able to hire staff, which isn't always the case when programs like this start up. In those meetings, have you gotten any sense from them that once a facility opens that has resources, that's new in an area, does that pull people that are in need and houseless from outside the area. There's been a concern in the community that if we have this great facility here, that somehow people that are in other communities are going to say, well, let's move to Sisters. That looks like a great place to be. I know that having lived in some other areas, that many of the resources that are currently available are not even that obvious, that the people who live around in the community don't always even know that they're there. So it's kind of hard to know what the draw is. Could you speak to that and the likelihood that people will pick up out of, you know, Redmond and say, oh, well, that's a nice place in Sisters, let's go there?
That's a good question. We've had some of those conversations, but there's nothing definitive that I can share with you. What I can share is, again, we are going to be an emergency shelter. The shelters that are located in Bend and Redmond, and now in Lapine, and Madras is getting one, and I understand that both Bend and Redmond are getting another one. They offer full-time care, if you want to call it that. You can stay there all day long if you prefer to do that. We won't be offering things of that nature. Again, the community that we have, that we've all experienced, quite different than the communities in there. What we found in the houses community is that the contingents like their little communities, and many of them from other areas are not going to do well here in our forests. We have a very hardy bunch, but it would be nice to be able to offer them services. So to answer your question, I can't tell you that it's going to decrease or increase ours. We have been operating since, like I said, late 2016. Now, we used buildings outside of our own, but it didn't change the population much in that way. So, and again, we did an effective job. We did a job where so few people in the city really understand that we did that well. And I give the credit to those sitting next to me, because I was just a lowly volunteer coming in, serving food and maybe doing some monitoring. But other than that, that's all I can offer you, Andrea.
Okay, thank you.
I can offer a little bit about Lapine. I was
Okay.
down there, and as far as I can tell, they had not received a lot of new input from, or not a new transient people coming to their facility.
Was their facility a 24-hour facility
The
or
door.
an emergency?
Yes.
I think the door is now a 24-hour
Okay.
facility.
And just to reiterate, you're not proposing that.
No, I'm
No.
not, no.
Okay.
And also, the very first year we had a shelter, Prineville did not have a shelter. Redmond did not have what they have now, not nearly what they have now. Bend didn't. So at first, we did get a few people coming in from other areas, but that didn't continue. They moved on to other places. And especially since, you know, Bend has Shepherd's House and Bethlehem Inn and the motels, and they have a lot more things happening there. Redmond has new facilities, Bethlehem Inn. Shepherd's House has a big new facility. They have a large church that houses some people. And so I don't think with just an emergency shelter, we would get people coming here just, you know, to stay sometimes, especially if they have an RV or something. They're not a lot of houses. Their living quarters are not movable. And so I wouldn't expect that, but we can't tell. I mean, we're not forecasters. We don't know.
To continue on, since we've talked about it, you've expressed the intent that this facility will be used as an emergency facility. I recently listened to a program that outlined that there are now more people each year dying of heat-related episodes than all the floods and hurricanes and tornadoes and all the other emergencies combined.
Right.
Would your facility have air conditioning? And would it have the ability to have a big community room so that all the people in Sisters who are not necessarily homeless, but maybe do not have access to air conditioning, would they be able to use it as an emergency shelter?
Again, wonderful question. Thank you. The building sits today, we do have air conditioning. One of the things that Sisters could be the beneficiary of is we applied for a current grant with Central Oregon's Health Council. We may get up to $200,000 for items that could improve the facility for health. And many of those items include air purifiers, things of that nature that would,
Case
again,
of smoke.
absolutely.
Okay.
We want to put a generator in the place. And again, there's some other features that we plan to do that is also related to health and also can answer the question for much of the safety issues. You know, we are in that we can ask for monitoring cameras and such. So to answer your question, absolutely. Yes, we've been qualified for 40 beds. And we don't see ourselves doing anywhere near that. We haven't historically done that anywhere near that. But again, we'd like to be able to offer the community that. We know just through our relationship with Family Kitchen of those that are in very vulnerable conditions. I mean, it's a shame that just happens to be the way inflation and all that is working. But again, there are individuals that are not only needing nutrition, but also in the bad conditions, their houses aren't really fit for them in many ways. So yes, we could do that. We'd like to be able to open up a nice community area in the building. It allows for that. Again, there's some things that we need to do to the building to facilitate that. We plan to do that. Again, what we're looking forward to is really the first season of the cold weather shelter to operate. And that's probably as much as we can handle right now while we get up to speed with our staff and get the technical assistance from entities like Shepherd's House, Bethlehem Inn, Neighbor Impact. They're giving us a lot of assistance in that direction.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll let other counselors ask questions. Susan, do you want to go next?
Yes,
Just remember our time. I'm not
Yeah.
picking on you. Everybody's got to remember we have about a half an hour left, so.
everybody's always
Okay.
picking
Yeah.
on me. I want to ask Scott, just to be perfectly clear relative to the status of the nonprofit. So the nonprofit was established for the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter Group August 12, 2020, and that is not yet 3 years. And but at the time they applied, they were a public benefit corporation. Is that correct?
At the time they applied for this application?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So they qualified under that standard, and then they can, as you said, reapply because they're now a 501c3, correct? Or do I have that wrong?
Well, if I understand your question correctly, their effective date of their exemption, according to the IRS letter, is August 12, 2020. The updated bill says you have to have 3 years from the date of your application I think we interpret that to mean the date you submitted it.
Oh,
So that's June 27th. So,
Oh, okay.
that's where the deficiency lies currently.
okay. Thank you. And
Can
then,
I add something to that?
yes.
So as we submitted this application, it was under the previous HB 2006, which required 3 years of being in a 501c3, unless, and/or, as they say it in the application, you were working underneath the guidance of another nonprofit. Since 2017 up to 2020, when we became our own 501c3, we were working underneath Shepherd's House. We were getting technical assistance from them. We were having all our donations sent to them. They were supplying those funds to us as we had to properly document that. So again, we feel that qualified us then, let alone this new HB 3395, which, as Scott correctly states, we will meet the letter of the law and qualifying there on August 12th.
Thank you very much. I'll do one more question
Sure.
for now. What access
or could you expand on what access you have relative to health emergencies in the location of the shelter? Like if somebody has a heart attack or, you know.
That's something that we're still considering. At this point in time, I think the community has equal access to those services as we do. We're not supposed to be necessarily a hospital or an urgent care center. We have, as a board, gone through training on a number of different facets related to houselessness. My background is a biomedical engineer and worked in medical imaging systems and such for almost 25, 30 years. And I'd like to have an AED on the facility and have us properly trained for that. I think that should substantiate the need for health. I can tell you, I've sutured. I was one of the first people at the Coalinga earthquake in California, and we were treating individuals that were in grave condition. So I am not unfamiliar with having to triage and treat. So we will get the proper training. We can certainly keep city council up to speed on what we're doing to, further that. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, and thank you for your public service.
Thank you.
Okay, Jennifer, go ahead.
Yeah, so to recap, this big leap is being taken because you were awarded a grant from COIC. Can you tell me the number of that grant again?
$1,458,570.
Very specific, thank you. All right, so how much of that is so you've decided that you're taking this tack as a group that you're purchasing a facility versus leasing or otherwise, and how much is that building going to cost?
$1 million.
And why are you purchasing? And I understand the real estate markets, we don't have to get into that. But I think I've seen a lot of feedback saying, and I think there's a lot of value to it, that $1 million is a lot of money and there's other things that can be done with $1 million. So why spend it, why spend 2/3 of this money on purchasing a property that I believe, looking at public records, the property owner bought 6 years ago for less than half that price? And versus other options of using those dollars for other programs and support?
Well, the very simple answer is we have tried numerous times, a half a dozen to my knowledge, just being involved in the board, to try to lease or even purchase a building. We had ARPA funds and we were seeking a building at that point in time, and that was the closest to purchasing a building that we had. Every time it seems like information would get out there as to who was buying or who was going to be leasing, and before we knew it, that space wasn't available anymore. One of the wonderful things here is that this community is able to get this much money. That $1 million to buy that building can be used in such a way, that is equity for our foundation, it's equity for our entity. We can use that in so many ways to continue to perpetuate the work that we want to do. In a perfect world, we're going to be able to assist individuals in the woods to go and become completely independent in housing. Then we would have a building for some other purpose. Who knows what we might morph into at that point in time that could continue to support the community. But that's the best answer I can give you. Again, I think it's an amazing gift that we were able in this small town to get fully funded for our application by COIC and the MAC group.
And you might indicate what you had to go through to get that approval. It wasn't like they were just handing out money willy-nilly. There was quite a process.
Yes, there was. Yeah, there were 22 submissions to the Tri-County area for $13.9 million. Of the 22, they were all rated and tiered. There were 4 that were tier 1 without a plus, and they got immediately funded for the programs that they had initiated or had applied for. We had a plus. That plus meant a question.
Joe, can you unmute, please?
Of what we were going to be awarded. I think we have a lean, mean efficient, simple process. This is not a big business to do. Again, yes, there's a big sum of money in that building, but the rest is going to be going to staffing. We're fortunate to have staffing in our town here, especially on the resource navigation. That's going to be doing outreach, working hand in hand with behavioral health. We also are going to be renting apartments to help rehouse individuals that have qualified by participating in the programs that COIC and those neighbor impact continue to help us or ask us to be a participant in. So I hope that answered the question. It was a lot. And again, to get the full funding of the grant and they've felt confident enough in us to do it, I think speaks volumes.
At this facility, just reading through your application, so and I need some clarity here. It was mentioned that, there is a parking lot on the site. So what is that parking going to be used for? Is that just for personnel and people to come, when you are open? Will there be trailers parked there or people camping in that parking lot? Can you answer that?
When I was reviewing the application to the city back when, and yes, it would have been nice to have that as some safe parking. We already know, then the camping ordinance came out. We understand that that's probably tightening up the restrictions. Certainly with the feedback we've gotten from the business community, the last thing I want to do is alienate them any further. So at this point in time, the car connection it will be at my, I will try to work with the board to extend their contract, allow them to be to continue to operate from that property. We have plenty of parking for those that do come into the shelter with a car, which in the past we haven't had a lot of them. So we plan to have family kitchen serving commissary meals out of the structure. And when they do that at the churches, typically people are coming in with their cars and picking up the meals. So we'll probably use part of that as a byway. At this point in time, there's no, if it is a park for safe parking, that's a long-term plan. It's not on our near focus by any means.
Okay. And do you have a security plan? Are you thinking, you mentioned security cameras earlier, beyond that, fencing, anything like that? What do you have in mind there?
Yeah. When the city manager and Scott and Carrie Prosser went out and looked at the building with us, we had looked at that. We'd like to, again, ingratiate ourselves to our neighbors. If it's a good neighbor fence they would like, fantastic. I could do something. We can probably do something like that. Yes, on the safety issue, we want to have cameras both interior and exterior of the building. One is that's going to help us with the fire monitoring, and that I think is a good thing. Nowadays, it's just good to have cameras so that you can see what's happening both inside and outside of the building. So other than that, I can't think of anything else. We have intake rules, codes of conduct that individuals that are coming to the facility have to adhere to.
Good luck with that.
Those are typically well supported. We are taking those directly from Shepherd's House, and they've had great success with that too.
I'd like to make a comment there. We have had a long-term, very, very good, close relationship with the police department. They're very much aware of us. We're very much aware of them. And in this particular case, they're maybe 2 blocks away. They have helped us many times. One man was trying to walk over Sandy Ann Pass in blue jeans and tennis shoes one night. Didn't make it. And the police found him and brought him back to us. And we got him a good night's sleep and got him some more tennis shoes and got him a bus ticket and things like that. So what I want to say is that we have a very good ongoing relationship with the police department. We feel very comfortable with them. They're very much aware of us. And we appreciate that.
We have Lieutenant Davis here this evening, I believe. Is he available to come forward? Lieutenant Davis, are you, Chad? He's back there. He's
Way in the back.
He's not walking up here.
Here he comes.
Thank you.
You can use my mic.
Take him out.
You can use my mic.
Please.
No, if, yeah, let's get stuff in this.
Um,
Make sure you speak into the microphone there, Chad, thank you. Kenneth, I mean,
Thank you.
Lieutenant, I know that you worked for Deschutes County Sheriff's for,
Recording in progress.
go ahead.
I was off the record for a while.
Why don't you do the question again?
Yes. How many years have you worked for Deschutes County Sheriff's Department?
28 years.
28 years. During that period of time, you have undoubtedly had much experience with facilities that are geared towards helping the homeless, resources, shelters. You have a emergency center kind of across from the sheriff's department almost, in the sense of a mental health facility. Do you have any sense about when a new facility arises, the amount of additional crime that facility may originate?
I would be speculating, based on prior experience with the warming shelter or the cold weather shelter when it functioned in 2022. It was located over on Main Street for about a month. It did generate some calls. I don't have the exact number. It wasn't, an extreme amount of calls, but there were calls that were generated.
Do you now feel, I know our contract has recently been renewed and additional resources have been placed in the Sisters area. Do you feel, given what your experience in this community has been in the past, that you have enough resources to deal with the types of issues that are likely to arise?
Well, working for the sheriff's office, we have the ability to call in resources from other districts, whether it's deputies in Bend, deputies in Redmond. We work with the Oregon State Police. We work with the Black Butte Police Department. And regardless of what the issue, whether it's this or a forest fire, any type of crime calls, we all work together and handle the calls. So I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to.
Personal experiences, would you expect that would be necessary given the
Phone audio.
given the current
The phone number for empirical
coverage?
audio is 5800.
Well, I'll say this. We deal with the houseless population on a daily basis. We deal with folks that are here and have been here for years, and we deal with people that come in on the state highway that we don't know at all, that come through town, they pass through. We try to assist with services and resources when we can. We investigate crimes. When crimes occur, we take people to jail. We take enforcement action. So I feel confident that regardless of what the issue is that we can handle anything. Now, we would always love to have more resources, just like any agency. But I feel confident that regardless of what the issue is that we can handle it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Since we have Lieutenant Davis here, does anybody have any law enforcement questions? I have one, and I've had concerned citizens kind of talk about response times and, 20, 30 minutes, depending on, the incident or the time of day. If there's an incident in the middle of the night, is 20 or 30 minutes, is that kind of the standard? Because there may be nobody on duty at that time and it's the West District deputy who's responding, or even another agency, or is it, or is it just the lack of a true emergency where someone's actually like injured or getting attacked? Is it different for these kinds of things?
I'll give you the answer. It depends.
Sure.
It depends on the priority level of the call.
Okay.
We have a 5-level system of calls. Priority 1 calls are, it's a in progress call. Life and death is basically occurring, and it goes all the way down to a priority 5 call, which is a lost wallet, that type of thing. Now, I would have to just check in and see, these are anecdotal information type calls, as far as the specifics.
Getting close there.
I got too many electronic devices on me.
That's okay.
So it depends,
This ring.
this ring?
I think that's what causes the distortion.
Okay. My wedding ring, sorry.
Gold.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, it depends. But 24 hours a day, we have law enforcement coverage here. A West deputy who's on after our City of Sisters deputies are off,
could be on another call. They could be at Dry Canyon on a crash or a DUI, and they're responsible for the city. When that happens, we transfer resources, whether we refer the call to Black Butte Ranch to ask for assistance, state police, or we have another deputy come from another district to cover. Now, what we've addressed with in the request for the fourth deputy is that we'll have an additional 7 days a week coverage, or we'll be kind of cleaning up that gap that we have in our service level on that swing shift. So till midnight, we will have somebody here 7 days a week, barring sick, vacation, training, et cetera.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Any more law enforcement questions while he's up here?
Yes.
If you can make it quick, just no. Just, we have 15 minutes left, so.
Okay. What was the result of your interfaces with I understood that at one point you went and visited the site. Is that correct?
No.
No. Oh,
Officer Hudson, I believe, did.
oh, Officer Hudson did. Oh, okay.
I'm aware of what the site is and where it's at.
Okay, are you aware of what Officer Hudson experienced? I mean, did he give you feedback or?
We have not talked about it, no.
Okay, then I won't ask the question. Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you, Lieutenant Davis. Appreciate the time, especially since you weren't expecting it, so. Councilor Ross on Zoom, would you like to ask a question or two of the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter Board?
Yeah, I'll make it quick since it's 9:30 at night here and I've been laying floor all day. I do have a question, and this may be for the attorney, it may be for Scott, or it may be for the board. It's very clear that this is proposed to be a cold weather, hot weather emergency shelter, and that's clear from your application. There's been a lot of emails that I have read from the community, and where people are concerned it's going to become a 24/7, 365 shelter. I think even seeing those words used. Can you explain a little bit, Scott and or Garrett, if those changes were to occur, would that require a process on the part of the city to allow that to occur, or can it happen underneath the House bills that we're talking about?
You want to take a crack?
Huh?
Sure.
No.
Go ahead.
I'll take a crack at that. So the starting from the easiest one. So the last question you asked, what would it be approved under should it ever occur? Undoubtedly, it would be the same set of, unless the legislature steps in again, the same set of criteria that would be considered under the initial approval. As far as modifications, that's one of the issues that the legislature didn't address in its legislation. So that is certainly one we are weighing, whether it can be conditioned as proposed, but that's certainly the way we're leaning is from a staff level, that is, that the approval is based on the proposal. If there's substantial modifications to the proposal, then that's going to require a new process.
And I want to be clear that I wasn't looking to put anybody on the spot. I just have seen a lot of those kind of comments in the plethora of emails that I've been reading back here. And I just kind of want a little clarification from that. So thank you very much. And that ends my questions. So you have some time, Michael.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead. I'll go last. No, I'd like to go last.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be the hardest.
Oh, okay. Ooh. So I'm looking at this application again from COIC. Was it a requirement for this money that it has to be a shelter?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, sorry about that. Is there a requirement from this grant process that it has to be a low barrier shelter?
Absolutely.
Okay. I think, some of what I was getting in some of the communication with community members was that, I think our community is not full of homeless people or dogs. But I think there was some confusion on, the people who are homeless, we all know are much of a spectrum, and there's a lot of talk in here about, families and children and stuff. So I don't think that you would get anybody who would argue that those people need services direly. and need housing and stuff like that. You know, and when you only have so much money and time and stuff like that,
This is a meeting.
like maybe better to prioritize those most at risk. So is there, you know, a way to do that, or a plan, or, you know, is it because this is a low barrier situation, you can't do that? Can you speak to that?
I think you're leading in, you want to know how we might cover, say, a family that's in need. We have, you know, a single mother with children in the woods. Is that what you're saying in terms of separating them and
Sure,
providing safety?
I think there's just, you know, I think confusion in the community of, you know, is somebody who, maybe an individual male who has, you know, obvious, you know, drug or criminal or mental health or just
Mhm.
something unsavory, versus a family, young children, or, you know, maybe
Yeah.
teenagers who were kicked out of their house because they were gay or something like that, you know, way more at risk. And, you know, is there, you know, since you have limited resources, is there, you know, maybe a system of how they're distributed between different needs?
Well, certainly in the past, we just haven't had that kind of experience. We just haven't had where that two demographics were in the same building. Fortunately, on this particular project for us, in the program that was approved, we'll have some apartments that we might be able to facilitate and be able to stabilize a family that might be in transition. I mean,
And are there apartments in the building or apartments at
no,
other facilities?
they're going to be another facility on
Got it.
within Sisters community.
Okay.
But then we might be able to help stabilize them, especially, you know, to formulate a plan for everything from house care to how do they earn a living, that sort of thing. I feel that's a fortunate piece that we can offer. Anybody else want to add anything?
I think that we have never had that issue that you're talking about, that we had to choose, because we were only around 10 or 12 people, and we had capacity for that. And we have rules and regulations separating the males from the females and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't think we've yet run into where we had to make a decision, yes to one and no to the other. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Just, you know, and just, yeah, I think that there is just, I think the community members and the messaging I was seeing was that, you know, they're not, you know, there is a segment of the population that gets a lot of the, you know, the press that are,
Right.
you know, engaging in criminal activity, this, that, or the other thing. And obviously the women, the children, the families, kind of fly under the radar. And, you know, so.
Our experience has been that, what I've seen, they're very grateful to have a shelter in the middle of a blizzard. And whatever their different issues are, they can control themselves, and they're very grateful to come in out of the storm and have dinner and sleep on a sleeping bag. And so they are aware, and they respond to that gift.
And several times we've had families that we have separated and put partitions
Yeah.
so they could kind of stay together and away from, you know, the general population. And so nobody's ever really been discriminated against or not being able to come because of that.
There's enough square feet in this building to do that?
Yes.
Yes, there is. Again, this is something that I think is more a problem when you have a 24-hour shelter and you're actually housing a family, and the other contingent, as you shared, they're living in that same building. Again, this is emergency shelter. I think if we had a family that was really sensitive to that, we would probably try to work with our partners, Shepherd's House, Bethlehem Inn, any of those. We've managed to find housing in Bend for some of the elderly that didn't want to reside in our shelter, and that worked out for a while. So you know, there's a lot of options. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, my turn. There's only 5 minutes left. If I go 5
Perfect.
minutes long, I think I only have 3 questions, but they're the harder ones.
All right.
Number one, what's your plan for long-term funding? You have this money. People want to know, you're going to start this all up. How do you keep it going? What's the plan?
Well, first of all, this whole program was funded for 3 years.
Okay.
Again, I think that's a generous gift on the part of COIC to give us that. We have done quite well in the past with regard to raising funds. Neighbor Impact, we've got a great relationship with them, and they continue to give us increasingly more when we ask. In fact, at times they've actually asked us to ask for more. So I think that's good. Again, we're only going to be a seasonal operation with regard to the shelter and the building. We don't anticipate a high overhead in that way. So again, we have a number of opportunities, grants, fundraisers that we do. I personally have a good relationship with the Murdoch Trust. So I think it's after 3 years or even earlier, we should show a pretty successful story that we can show on grants. And I think that will be our best course.
Okay.
Everybody
good with that? Okay. I'm just making sure nobody has a follow-up question. Go
Well,
ahead.
and also without fundraising, any serious fundraising, we still get generous donations. And so we're not too worried about that part of it.
Do you guys
And-
have any intentions of doing strategic planning and things like that most nonprofits do to kind of figure out how it's all going to work down the road? I mean, obviously this is the first year, but most of the nonprofits that I have been working with over the years obviously have that kind of work. Is this something that you guys are intending to do during the first year, the second year, to make sure that years 4 and on are fully funded?
I think we just like to operate for the first year and see how it goes. We don't have any grand schemes. We want to provide support for that vulnerable community that's been in this city for as long as it has. And I don't see that growing exponentially. So if we can stay small, lean, and mean, that would be my preference. But again, I'm only one of a board.
I understand that part. I'm only one of a council, so I get that part. The second question is about hours for services. Obviously, I have heard you say here already that you're going to be concentrating on the emergency shelter part of it first, especially regarding this winter.
Correct.
I think most people can support that to a certain extent as far as helping our vulnerable houseless in the winter. We get that part. This council has been very supportive over the years for a cold weather shelter where it was before and how it worked before. This is a bit of a different animal. When you get services, are the hours only going to be kind of a 9 to 5 daytime stuff just for services at that time?
I'd even like to cut that in half right now. Stick with something manageable.
Okay.
Again, the community that we serve, we know, and I could see them coming in, nutritional services, showers, wash and dry, keep them clean, get on the internet once in a while for things that they need. Again, if you've never been houseless, to try to gain access to services without an address is just so difficult. So we would like to help them doing that. Plus, as we mentioned, we're going to have behavioral health in the building a couple days a week from the county, let alone our own individual. So we want to be able to provide that. So to answer your question, we'd like to start slow. We're thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 to 1. Again, that's something we are still discussing as a board. And I'm willing to work with my community business partners and in a good neighbor fashion, let's come up with some hours that they would like to see us operate.
We will probably hold you to that.
Could I follow on?
Yeah, follow up.
On the hours thing, relative to the example you gave about a blizzard, the blizzard may not last from 1 to 4. And so how is that managed? I mean, if it's a 2-day blizzard, are they there for 2 days?
No.
Okay. How does that work then, please?
No, in the past, the cold weather shelter started at 6 o'clock and they were not allowed to loiter. They showed up at 6 and spent the night and had monitors, and they got breakfast at 7 in the morning and they had to leave.
Okay.
So, it was just overnight.
Okay.
All right. Good, yeah. Okay. Last question. Is there anybody on the board, on your board, that is looking long-term to make this a full-time shelter? like 4 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 6 years down the road? Is that a goal that, I mean, I'm getting this question from many people.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
We want to do a good job with what we have presented, and that's our focus.
Emergency shelter.
Yes, emergency
Just
shelter.
sure.
Yeah.
This is probably the biggest
Yeah.
question that everybody has. Well, you're opening the door to a full-time shelter. La Pine's got one. You know, Redmond and Bend have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I think having that many in other areas kind of makes it easy for us to just stay like we want to be as an emergency shelter, provide resources in the woods. Because again, many of those individuals prefer to be in the woods. And again, we'll just have to take each case.
A lot of people in this room may not know that almost half of our homeless in the woods right now work in the City of Sisters. They're employees, they're neighbors. You probably know them. Those people we do want to help at almost any cost, to be honest with you. They work, they're people. There are others that, you know, not as friendly, obviously, sometimes, but we do want to help as much as we can. We're not here to bash anybody, to refuse help to anybody. So thank you for answering our questions. We're going to have a regular city council meeting here in about 5 minutes. Again, if you have public comment and you want to come up and speak for 3 minutes, anybody can have 3 minutes to talk about this or other issues. We're here to hear that, but after that, we're going to have a regular city council meeting. Some of us may have comments about this workshop at the end of our city council meeting, but I can't tell you when that is. It's usually, we start at 6:30, we usually go to 7:30, 8 o'clock. So it'll be in there if you want to hang out. But other than that, thank you everybody for this.
And if they want to speak, they need to stand up.
Yeah, you need to sign up in the back if you want to speak at the next city council meeting. They're on the table back there somewhere or outside. I think they're in the lobby. Table in the corner. Okay. And thank you, Garrett, for being here.
Mayor Preeden, may I make I think I have a hand raised that I'd like to speak to.
Okay.
So just so the people on Zoom know, if you would like to speak during visitors communication, there will be a time that we will call on you. If you've raised your hand, we'll go through the list and call on you, just so you know.
All right. Thank you to the Cold Weather Shelter for being here. We appreciate it. And we're looking forward to seeing more information and see how the application goes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
This workshop's adjourned. We'll take a 5-minute break. We'll actually go to 6:40 to start the All right, I'd like to call to order the August 9th regular city council meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Next up is a roll call. Councilor Ross is not present. Councilor Bloom.
Here.
Councilor Letts.
Here.
Councilor Cobb.
Here.
And I'm the mayor and I'm here, so we have a quorum. First item up is the approval of the agenda.
I would move approval of the agenda.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 4-0. Next up is visitor communication. I know we have a bunch. How many do we have in person?
We have 24.
Okay, that's a lot. I'll remind everybody, it's 3 minutes each. If there's a point that's already kind of been made, it'd be great if some of you could let that point go, because if it's said the same every time, we already have heard it before. And with 24 people at 3 minutes each, that's an hour. So we do have kids at home, many of us, so we would like to get home sometime tonight. But we appreciate your statements. We will do everybody in the room first, and we will do Zoom second. And then what we'll do is, let's make sure that this isn't a football game. We're not cheering for one side and booing the other. Let's be respectful when people are talking so everybody can hear the person talking. And unfortunately, this isn't a back and forth. This isn't a debate. You won't be hearing comments from city council. This is a chance for visitor communication from you, the citizenry, to us, the council, and we'll be listening. We'll be taking notes, and possibly at the end of the night, someone may make a comment or two on this. But for the most part, it's for the record so that we can show that you spoke and what you said, and then we can go back to it and ponder on that at a later date when we're actually making the final decision, because we're not making any decision up here on the cold weather shelter tonight. Do you want to give me the list, or are you going to call them yourself?
I can call them up myself. I'll do the best I can with the names, so give me some grace on that. Then you can kind of just come up here and just speak into the microphone, and that would be great. So first up is Michael.
Because of the respect of time, I'm not going to read this, of course. I did want to say the reason people that are seeing a larger picture of things, they set up amendments and such as HB 2006, that cuts through people that are myopic on these type of subject. The way your county health department has a mission statement that they don't follow. The way the 13th Amendment of the Constitution was created to stop slavery. But I guarantee you, I've talked to a lot of people, including Black people, through the time that know there's still slavery going on all the time, but it's psychological. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Michael. Appreciate
Next
it.
is Eric Knirk. I probably said that wrong. Okay.
Eric?
Once. Nope. Okay. Moving on. Gary T. Walt.
Okay, thank you. You hear me good enough there?
We can hear you. Can you,
Okay.
Excuse me, Gary.
Sorry.
Do we have to
name and address, please, Gary?
Gary T. Walt, Sisters Oregon, is that what you wanted? I'm hard of hearing, dear.
Oh, yep. That's fine.
All right, now, I just wanted to let you folks know that you've got one huge endeavor ahead of you, and it's going to take some magnitude to you may not have ever dreamed of. First of all, you're dealing with veterans. And I'll tell you, I was a veteran here. I've been here most of my life. My family built the Sisters Hotel in 1912. My family built this Church of Christ where the Belfry is now in the teens. My family provided all the lumber for the school that sits right where this building is now and burned in 1923. My family also provided all the lumber for the rural Russell School where the parking lot is now over here. And I demoed it a long time ago to build the the elementary school. So, that being said, and I'm a veteran, I was graduated in this brick building over here in 1962. My business is being affected on Barkley just 2 years shy of 50 years. And I'll tell you, the work it took to get us out there is unbelievable. And now you're going to affect a lot of other veteran builders and businesses out there that are true veterans of the community. They've been here quite a long time. And they understand what it takes to make a community like this building you're in, all the streets, the subdivisions, the library, all of that stuff came from those people out there and myself. Now you have a situation where you could affect all of them people out there. They've spent all of their years acquiring the money it took to get out there, and potentially this could affect them deeply. Those people out there truly have the flavor and the character of this town in their hearts. And I want to be sure that you people understand what that flavor and character means, as well as the planning commission. I don't know who comes first in this format, but you want to be sure to yourself, before you make a vote, just how much flavor and character you have in your heart, and or have you been here long enough to really learn what the people of this community ask for and need. And if you don't, if you haven't, I think it's your obligation to maybe step back and abstain from voting. Think about that deeply. I don't think we need freshmen and sophomores leading this endeavor. The city's going to lose a lot of taxes off of that building, considerable amount. I forget the number, but it's huge. But one thing you're going to gain is the sheriff's department budget should be reduced, because those deputies can walk to the scene. Thank you.
We're just not going to have that. Thank you. I appreciate your enthusiasm.
Okay, Mark Dickens.
Okay, we missed it.
Thank you, Gary, by the way. We appreciate it. We really do.
Thank you, City Council. Mark Dickens, 133 East Black Crater Avenue, Sisters, Oregon. I'm a member of the Community Action team of Sisters. You may know us, we're very vocal about these kinds of issues. However, I am not speaking tonight advocating for one side or the other regarding the shelter. What I am more concerned about is the process, or more specifically, the lack of public process that City Hall seems to operate under. A very recent example of this was a survey conducted a few weeks ago by Scott Humpert of the DMO, Destination Management Organization, Explore Sisters, that was sent out quietly to only a few select in the community regarding the new plan for the branding and marketing and, frankly, the exploitation of Sisters as a destination resort. When did City Hall ask all of the citizens of this town if we want our community to transform into another Sun River? Why is City Hall spending almost $350,000 a year to brand and market Sisters as a destination resort when that will only greatly exacerbate the very issue we are here tonight to talk about, the displaced, houseless, and unsheltered? Instead, that money should be used to build actual infrastructure and facilities that serve both tourism and the entire community, instead of subsidizing the wasteful and unnecessary marketing and promotion for a few limited number of businesses. In 2019, City Hall voted to pass Ordinance 497, which stripped away the owner-occupied requirement for STR, short-term rentals, on accessory dwelling units. That single change in policy was highly destructive for small, affordable housing units. Why was this done, and who profited from this? This seems extremely suspect, to say the least, and not at all supported by the community. Real, meaningful community input is extremely necessary and critical to a proper, equitable outcome, instead of something short-sighted and hasty being forced on one side or the other. During the height of debate over the Space Age gas station, there was an orchestrated effort on behalf of the folks at City Hall, C4C, and the Nugget to diminish, deter, and suppress any harsh criticism of our elected officials at City Hall. Is this a really good strategy for City Hall to employ against the vocal citizens of this community? To ignore, discount, or only listen to a select few in the town, or as the City Hall likes to say, the movers and shakers, is unfair, unethical, and unjust. Everyone living in this town is a stakeholder to some degree. We have stakes in our lives, our homes, our businesses, our family, and our futures on Sisters. We have staked it on Sisters, and everyone should be heard from equally. As my dear friend Emil Smith, a resident of Sisters, recently said, who has lived here since 1961, now at the age of 90, City Hall needs a hearing aid. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Okay.
Mark.
Paul Basile.
Hi, my name is Paul Basile, and my wife and I live at 191 West Clearpine Drive in Clearpine subdivision. If the application of the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter was a proposal for a temporary emergency shelter only, in which a small number of homeless folks in our community, not currently living in an RV or a trailer, could seek refuge during periods of extreme cold, heat, or smoke, that is much needed and is the right thing to do. But this proposal is not just for that emergency shelter. In OR 2006, there is provision for expansion. The applicant's first opportunity to talk about what the purpose of the shelter is on the grant application says very clearly, this is for a homeless shelter, not an emergency shelter. I believe, based on a somewhat experienced communication, that this proposal is not just for that. I believe that the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter intends to operate a full-service facility, 24/7, 365, and in a location that is 450 feet from our subdivision. And for any homeless person, for any reason, thus becoming a magnet for all categories of the homeless, with a very high probability of our community being the next Bend or Portland. I have personally reached out to the SCWS board members on several occasions to share my concerns and questions, only to be ignored. They are propagating erroneous information to the media as to their true intention to operate a full-service facility while demonstrating a lack of knowledge and consideration that the location where they plan to operate is in close proximity to existing homes owned by senior citizens and families with young children. My wife and I recently escaped to Sisters from Bend, Bend's Juniper Ridge area. It's a residential area, and after several years of experiencing homeless campers on city property behind our house and instances of illegal activity, including thefts of property from my house and those of others, we also experienced a mass evacuation of over 300 homes due to a homeless person's RV causing a fire in Juniper Ridge in 2020. We realize that these instances involve the actions of a minority of the homeless population. Regardless, we do not want to see Sisters attract more homeless folks who live without respect for or regard to the safety of others. But this proposed shelter will do just that. We believe that this proposal poses an unreasonable risk to public safety and health, not only to the Deschutes National Forest or the adjacent ranches just blocks away, but also to our residential neighborhoods of Clearpine, Sisters, Woodlands, Grand Peaks, the several apartment and townhome complexes, other businesses and live-work establishments in the neighboring light industrial area, and downtown businesses with the potential to negatively impact them.
Paul, can you wrap it up, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
There is no opposition for the need to provide a temporary emergency shelter, but again, this is not that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Paul. We're just trying to keep it at 3 minutes so we get out of here at a normal time if possible.
Pat Thompson.
Pat Thompson. I own and operate a business at 331 West Barkley Drive. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
I'm a member of the property owners that sent a formal letter of opposition to the City of Sisters. All of you counselors received a copy of that. The letter details where the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter fails to meet the requirements of ORS 197.782, which was created with House Bill 2006, and why the city cannot approve this application with so many deficiencies and the lack of support from the Sisters community. Number one, the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter is not a qualified operator. They have no experience in running a facility of this size as required by the application. They also are not an authorized organization as required by the application. The application fails to meet fundamental operational requirements. It was back a one-page outline in the application. It's deficient of plans and information to support a well-ran and operated facility. There is no detailed operation plan. Buildings and floor plans showing how 20-plus beds would fit it and meet code for the cold weather shelter are completely not available or even drawn yet. No safety plan for the neighborhood and the community. No transportation plan for the community. No written code of conduct and enforcement plan for the community to review. This application completely fails to provide the evidence of unreasonable risk to public health and safety. This application completely fails to provide any information supporting access to medical, adult, and commercial services. Based on these issues, the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter has clearly failed to meet the requirements of House Bill 2006. We appreciate the Sister City officials examining the application. However, they are only authorized under the new law to review and evaluate on the basis of the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter application on the application alone. Let me repeat that. They are only authorized under the new law to review and evaluate the basis of the application on the application alone. The new law does not authorize the city to research the health and safety risks as well as the other deficiencies to supplement Sisters Cold Weather Shelter's application. Without supplementing the additional information, the city has no choice but to deny the submitted application.
Thank you, Pat.
Kyle Parker? Yes.
Hi, thanks for the chance to participate. First off, I'm really proud to be part of a community that has so much passion, so kudos to everybody for showing up here. My family of three, including our 16-year-old high school student, moved here recently. We've often visited on vacations and are just really excited to make this our home. One of the reasons we chose Sisters was the characteristics of a safe, small town. Previously to living here, we lived in the Portland metro area and have seen how quickly a city can go from great, safe family environment to one overrun with theft, drugs, vandalism, graffiti, violence, and the list goes on. Most of the negative changes can be traced to leadership and policy decisions. I have empathy, as I believe everyone here does, for our homeless community and the members of our community that are houseless and in need of help. Though I am greatly concerned about the prospect of a homeless shelter located at the proposed site on Barclay. My family lives in the Clear Pine neighborhood, a mere 500 feet away. My concerns include safety and quality of life for my family and neighbors, as well as the businesses around the area, and also for those that the project would undoubtedly draw to our community. It would be extremely difficult for a small community like Sisters to take on such a project, which will surely bring more folks from outside of our community. Especially without the appropriate resources to care for those that come, they won't get the help they truly need, and associated problems will increase and spiral. Aside from the worthwhile discussion about whether Sisters needs a shelter, could support a shelter, and how to truly help, And I think it's good to have debates about those kind of things. And I appreciate you guys having this opportunity. The proposal simply does not meet at least 3 of the requirements in the law. Approval would cause undue stress and risk for our city, community, and public resources not equipped to manage the influx. The unavoidable increase in crime would change our city for the worse. And the unmet requirements that I've seen are the safety requirement, access to medical services, as well as the time and experience the operator has been working with or operating such a shelter. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Kyle.
Liz Foster?
Hi, my name is Liz Foster. I reside at 219 West Hysene Drive in Clear Pine. I have been in the community for 50 years. We have property out in Camp Sherman. I had a great opportunity to move back to the state of Oregon. I'm a fifth generation Oregonian. I moved back in 2019. Some of the first people I met here were some of the founding members at Sisters Cold Weather Shelter, as well as some neighbors in Clear Pine. I was not even aware of Clear Pine. When I moved back, one of the first things I did notice as I was living out in Camp Sherman is trailers parking in undesignated campsites, and that was new to me. I've been coming back here for all of my life. And I wondered about that, and so I had an opportunity to talk to some of those founding members at a gathering at a beverage place here, a diner here. And I knew that that was something I wanted to be a part of. I wanted to learn more about our houseless population here. I am from the Portland area. I have a kid. And
Hold on a second. Excuse me, everybody on Zoom, can you please mute yourself and turn off your video? Thank you. Sorry about that.
San Francisco and Los Angeles. So I am very aware of the houseless issues in the large cities, and coming back here, I'm seeing the camping in undesignated areas. And I know I have a part in that. I need to find out what I can do to support the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter and other partnering partners to help address this global crisis. And when I look at your website, I see so much information addressing coordinated houseless response. Many names are on there who are willing to participate and help. I think it's wonderful that we're all here. We all care about our community. We want to protect our resources and support all of the people in this community. We already have houseless people living right within our community. In fact, right across from Clear Pine off of Pine Street. And I know that breaking down the barriers by volunteering and meeting the houseless, I helped supported them during meals and monitored. I was amazed at the individuals who were coming in and receiving those resources and how thankful they were. We had no issues while I was there doing my limited amount of volunteer. I have seen the efforts of the boots on the ground of the volunteers within Sisters Cold Weather Shelter and their supporting partners, and it's astounding, including our Forest Service and behavioral health. And also, I believe it's COVA who helps assist veterans. I noticed on your website that in 2022, we had 29 students attending Sisters School District who are unhoused. That's a concern. We need to support all of our individuals here, protecting all of our resources and lifting each other up. And I encourage everyone who's here to step in and be a volunteer. We could really help support our community and our Sisters Cold Weather Shelter address this global crisis. So thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Please.
Ann Bartlett.
please refrain from, this isn't a football game. This is comments from them to us, and we want everybody to hear them. Thank you.
I want to, Ann Bartlett, 204 Clear Pine. So I think you've already heard that our Clear Pine neighbors have different opinions. And I would just reiterate that my husband and I are very much in favor of this shelter, that I'm proud to belong to one of the churches that pre-COVID helped to take our turn having, during extreme weather, having people come and shelter in our church. To have the chance to have in our community a monitored, well-run, staffed emergency shelter, I don't know where the fear is that there's this sense it's going to be 365/7 comes from. I keep hearing emergency shelter. Maybe that needs to be clearly defined, but I think it could only be a boon to those who are the forest dwellers. Frankly, the people who are in the forest in our neighborhood of Clear Pine are closer to us now than they would be on Barkley Lane in a shelter. So for those reasons, I support this project, and I hope that it goes forward.
Thank you, Ann.
Okay, Therese Collars?
Geez.
Going one, oh.
So just a reminder to everybody, we're going to 3 minutes, but speak clearly into the microphone so everybody can hear you. Thank you.
I'm Therese Kohler, 1190 North Jansen Court. I'm here to talk about Ordinance 497 and request a review and reevaluation of Sisters Development Code as relates to service stations in the downtown commercial district and expansion of non-conforming uses and structures. Sisters gas stations in the downtown commercial district, including Space Age, used to be characterized as a legal non-conforming use, which meant they could not be expanded nor rebuilt. As part of a code text amendment process in 2018 and 2019, downtown gas stations were changed to a minor conditional use permit / special provisions as currently reflected in Use Table 2.4.1, Use Table for the Downtown Commercial Use District. This means that not only would expansions of downtown gas stations now be considered, but such an application would only be subject to an administrative Type 2 planning staff review before approval. Another change was to establish a 1,000-foot buffer between gas stations in the downtown commercial district. Gas station setback requirements were also changed. These changes, along with several others considered in the TA 19-01 discussions, were approved as part of Ordinance 497 by Sisters City Council in 2019. In the historic unfolding of events leading up to the passage of Ordinance 497, it would appear the only member of the public who ever made a public comment relative to downtown service stations to either the Planning Commission or to the City Council about the proposed amendments was James Pliska, owner of the Space Age gas station in Sisters and elsewhere. Once the citizens of Sisters realized what was afoot with the Type 2 application, SP 22-02/MCU 22-01, submitted on behalf of Pliska Investments for the replacement of the existing Space Age station at Cascade and Pine with a new 16-pump fuel island and a 3,500 square foot convenience store, there was serious opposition to the proposal. As we learned more about the situation, we had significant concerns about how Ordinance 497 ever got on the books to begin with relative to this issue, and the opaque and mysterious nature of the text amendment process from the perspective of the average citizen living in Sisters. I request that the city initiate a new text amendment process to review, reevaluate, and revise the standards applicable to downtown gas stations as soon as possible. This time around, there needs to be real public engagement in the discussions. It would be ideal if more public notification was pushed out to locals anytime that text amendments are under consideration. More info on social media, including the City of Sisters Facebook and website, Nextdoor, etc., and more articles on the Nugget. Focused workshops could be offered specifically to get real-time public input and discussion on a specific text code amendment. This will provide an opportunity to align the parameters and development code text for the downtown gas stations with the goals, policies, and objectives of the comprehensive plan.
Reese?
Thank you. I'm
Oh,
done.
great, perfect timing. Thank you so
timing.
much. We do appreciate your comments. All right. I'm on number 11. I don't know if anybody's counting.
Yep, we are.
Okay.
Kelly Gutierrez.
Kelly, come on up. Is that with an I or a Y, please?
Why? Oh, my first name.
Your first name, Kelly?
My parents
with
weren't hippies, that's why.
It's okay. Thank you. I just like to write it down correctly.
That's okay, thank you very much. I am really nervous here.
Okay, we're gonna do 3 minutes, okay? You okay?
Nice to see you, Lou.
Don't fight.
So, a lot of the points I was gonna bring up have already been brought up, so I'm just gonna scroll through here.
Yeah, I'm sure I could
I
also.
think what I expressed when I had a dialogue with Lou was accountability. And I worked for 9.5 years with homeless families and veterans, and accountability was number one. If I'm understanding correctly, it's a low barrier shelter, which means that drugs and alcohol would not necessarily be used on site, but they would be on site. And that is concerning to me. The other thing that concerns me is that it was from 8 to 11 people, or 8 to 12 people from what I understand. And you're talking about an at-risk community. Well, in my opinion, children are the biggest at-risk community. So if we're gonna do something, we need to include families and children, because nobody wants an adult to freeze to death, but God forbid a child freeze to death. So I'm not opposed to the proposed program. I think $1.5 million is a blank load of money to spend on 8 to 12 people. I think there should be better stewardship. I think that there should be transparency on expenditures. I think the Nugget should post monthly what their expenditures were, what their successes have been, and what their failures have been. And lastly, I'd like to address Jordan's comment that the decision will only be made based on law and criteria. So why am I standing here? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Alexis Crossgrave. Yeah,
That's okay.
got me.
Is it Alexa?
It's Lexi.
Lexi.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm a local to Here Sisters. I just have some points as being a local that I would like to put forth. The cost of living is so high here in Sisters that the only grocery store we have is Ray's. I mean, we have Dollar General and then we have Bi-Mart, but the real only grocery store we have is Ray's, and they are so expensive that it already makes it hard for us locals to live here. So how do we expect to help the homeless in the homeless shelter if us locals cannot even afford to pay for our groceries at the local grocery store? Second, there are potential accidents involving homeless just because everybody has their difficulties. And I understand that some people have mental health issues, and then some people just have the freedom will to do what they please. So when it comes to that, how can you guys guarantee that us locals who have lived here our whole life can guarantee our safety when it comes to these homeless people that are taking advantage of the system rather than putting forth and trying to do better in their lives? The last thing is, if it's not long-term, then why are we putting almost $2 billion into a fund that's temporary? Also, it would be more realistic if it was, we had a strategic and financial plan for the homing for the homeless in this building that is going to be made? And what is the financial and what can better the locals for this moment in time? Because us, as much as the homeless are here as well, us locals who have lived here our whole life and grew up here with generations and generations, we have to deal with that as well. So I just want to make that known that us locals have to deal with it just as much as anybody else. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, Carrie Kiefer. Sarah McDougal.
Hi, my name is Sarah McDougal. I live at 685 East Coyote Springs Road here in Sisters. And I'm here to support the siting of the cold weather shelter. I really appreciate all the insightful questions council had tonight. They're questions I would have asked myself, and I have been asking. I think that we need to go into this asking questions and continue to have conversations. Yeah, so I think this is a really good start for the public. 2 years ago, I was directed to a meeting of the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter Board. I was just interested in finding out more about, how I knew nothing about the homeless situation. I'd not met anybody that was homeless. And so I just started hanging out with them to learn and listen. And I've gone to as many board meetings as I could just to, again, to learn. I did volunteer 2 years ago when the shelter was active. It's just as described. The nights I was there were usually around 8 to 10 people. People would come in, have dinner, they'd have their bit of community for the day, and they were tired. They went to sleep. There was not a whole lot going on after the first hour of eating. There are a lot of reasons I believe in having an emergency shelter here in Sisters. And as we've seen the last 2 winters, we really had a hard time finding space. And I appreciate your question, Jennifer, about the large expenditure for the building. Honestly, this is the option that has presented itself. Other options over the last couple of years have just been shut down for a lot of reasons. And I too question that large amount, but I see this as our time. I realize the siting decision is not made by the City Council, but rather through city staff comparing the application from the cold weather shelter against the House Bill 3395. My ask would be that Council stand behind city staff taking whatever reasonable time is necessary to work with the cold weather shelter to obtain and submit any missing documentation and/or approve the siting with reasonable conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, Amanda Moore.
Welcome, Amanda.
Hi, thank you. First off, I would like to say that I live here in Sisters. I am a taxpayer and homeowner.
Can we get your address, please? Sorry to interrupt.
442 North Village Meadows Road. My biggest issue is this is a huge, huge decision for all of the people in Sisters. We are all community. It takes a village. And this should be up for a vote. This should be something that is put on a ballot for everybody in Sisters to be able to vote on and give their opinion on. It shouldn't just be, okay, this is what we're doing and this is what we're gonna do. I would like to know where these people are gonna be going during the day when our tourists come in and want to seek a beautiful landscape and all they see is people on the sides of the street with holding up signs and asking for money. Are they, after they get kicked out of the homeless shelter, where are they gonna go? Are they gonna go into the woods? Are they gonna have more tents? Are we gonna have a dirt world like they do in Bend? Is that what it's gonna be over on Pine Street? Is that where it's gonna come to? I was awakened by a man screaming out in front of my house in 2019 from a man that they brought in from the Salem Mental Institution to stay at our cold weather shelter because we had an open bed. The guy was completely out of his mind and he stabbed himself. That was the morning of my daughter's wedding. Unacceptable. I don't understand how we're going to have the resources to help these people. We don't even have urgent cares. We don't have ERs. It took over 10 minutes for the ambulance to get there to help the guy that stabbed himself. How are we going to have the resource? We don't even have mental illness resources for the people that live in Sisters, much less the homeless people that come here that have the mental illness. How are we going to sustain and handle all of these people that come here to live for 3 hots and a cot? We don't have the money. People come here to live, to escape the Portland area, to escape having to live and see tent cities and everything else. Sisters is a beautiful community. We should not be ruining it with the way that they're going to be bringing the people in here. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Okay, Jesse Frost, and I'm not gonna be able to get to the, oh, sorry about that.
It's Jesse Frosland. I live off Hinkle Butte. I moved here 3 years ago. I'm from Eugene. Have extensive dealings with the homeless there.
I
have a
don't
lot
think
of.
they can hear you.
Oh, do you need me to go up here? Okay.
Yeah, just kind of get.
I've had to deal with a lot of the homeless situation in Eugene. A lot of my friends wound up homeless and in addictions, and my best friend lost his daughter in her vehicle last year due to weather and just living on the streets. Since I moved here, I live in a travel trailer myself, and I can tell you right now that it gets deadly cold out there. Your pipes freeze, everything freezes. If you don't have electricity to hook up to or some sort of power, you're running a serious risk of dying in your sleep. So I do feel like this cold weather shelter is going to do a lot of good. The past 6 months, I've been volunteering at the Shepherd's House and in the Shepherd's House ministry, going to the lighthouse and seeing kind of how all that whole situation works. There is a lot of people that are in that situation that are trying to get out of it and willing to join programs like the Shepherd's House and be sober and, you know, try to change their lives around. They're not bad people. A lot of these people are my friends, really close friends. And it's a need in our communities that's not going to go away. It's here. And there's nothing really, I don't think anybody can do to lower those numbers. They've been increasing like crazy. When I was in Eugene, it started out with maybe a couple hundred and blew up to a few thousand. I'm not saying I want that or anything for our community here, but I do feel like it's necessary to at least have some sort of shelter for those people that do have small children and the women and children that when we do have bad weather come through, that they have protection that they need so that they don't die in their sleeps. So that's what I really have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Eric Cope.
All right, the next Eric.
Hey, how are you doing tonight? Thank you for your time tonight.
Just please, sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Eric Cope, 1295 West Railway. I worked 2.5 years at Dollar General from the time that it first opened until last year when I found another position. And I got to know many, many citizens here in this town, homeowners to the houseless people. And I agree with him, our mayor, that a lot of the houseless people that live and work here, they kind of fall through the cracks. They make too much money to stay in the low apartments, but they don't make enough to go into the other homes. However, with that being said, I also got to know a lot of people that came in from Salem and different areas. They were shipped out or somehow ended up in Bend. The shelter got overbooked there, so they overlapped over into Sisters. There were people that I met that had criminal backgrounds. They came out of the state hospital, so they had mental illness. I had to trespass them often because they were stealing in our store. Drug needles, things like that came through there. And I know a lot of them actually stayed in the temporary shelter during the winter when they were here, because I knew a young lady that worked at the shelter. And so she would tell me some of the different things that would go on there. And they do have rules and regulations and things like that, but when they break those rules, they're just turned out onto the street. Somebody else had a good point that what happens to them during the day? Well, they're just out on the street anyway. It's hard enough to take care of some of our own people that's here, that's trying to make a living, that's living in the woods. Nevertheless, ones that are coming in from other areas, and they're just walking around, basically. I mean, it's just a temporary fix by having this with no real resources to really help them get a job. And I'm telling you right now, we were hiring all the time. A lot of these people that I met, they didn't want to work, and they don't want to. So I don't know, just really pretty much try to consider this. And if they do want to open it up, there needs to be a lot more questions asked about what they can do for people. Because otherwise, I think we're going to get a different type of caliber of people to keep coming here, and I don't know what we're going to do with them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Sharon Booth.
Hello, my name is Sharon Booth. I live at 69453 Lasso in Sisters. I'll just leave this now. The purpose of my being here is to express my concern about the rapid expansion of short-term rentals, or STRs, in Sisters. This is bad for Sisters for multiple reasons. The STRs are a very lucrative business, which is benefiting really only the realty companies that specialize in STRs and some investors who are often from out of the area, and they will often buy up multiple houses in the same neighborhood. So they're having a big effect upon the quality of life in Sisters. I have 5 quick reasons why I think this is a really urgent problem. The constant presence of multiple outsiders in a residential neighborhood is undermining the previously strong sense of neighborhood in Sisters. There are numerous unknown people coming and going, cycling, walking in and out of houses in a residential area. This is not in a commercial area. They don't obey the speed limits and don't give the right of way to pedestrians. We no longer know if someone belongs in our neighborhood. The days of not locking doors are long gone. Number 2, people on vacation like to party, make noise, use loud voices while outdoor using hot tubs, which means they're just more easily heard, and it's every weekend. It's not just an occasional thing that one would expect to happen off and on. Number 3, the STR business is making the shortage of available rental housing much worse by removing resources from the market. Many of these houses sit empty most of the time, while potential workers are unable to find housing. Number 4, the visitors don't understand about the dark sky commitment, which Sisters claims to embrace, and they leave bright lights on all night and even in the daytime. At my house, the STR behind us has extremely bright lights that are left on all night and shine right into our bedroom. So, these may seem like small things, but they create a great deal of disturbance in neighborhoods. Our peace and quiet is threatened by these mostly unregulated businesses, and Sisters needs to face these realities and take steps to more effectively regulate these businesses just like any other business. Many cities in the Western United States have been forced in recent years to take action to protect their residents from these intrusions. And this is an urgent issue given the rapid growth of the STR industry that can't be ignored and should be proactively addressed. And a payoff would be more revenues in the form of license fees and taxes. So there's a good side to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Donna Burklow.
Hello, and thank you for this opportunity. I am Donna.
Please, sorry.
Sorry, it is 1613 Northeast Leslie in Bend. I come representing Family Kitchen, which is an organization that provides free meals for anyone in need in Bend. And we are also serving one meal in Sisters each week from the Sisters Community Church. We're very grateful for that opportunity. We've served meals to anyone in need for the past 37 years in downtown Bend, partnering with service providers who serve those who are precariously housed, as well as those who are houseless, offering food alongside providers, medical providers, counselors, shelter providers, case managers, all in a downtown location next to a school, the library, and churches. We know how to be good neighbors. We have a teen volunteer program that's been at our site for 13 years. We have over 400 volunteers of all ages who come to provide nutritious meals. We know food and shelter are necessary. We're impressed that you all have come this close to this opportunity to make a difference that may prevent houselessness, as well as offer a path out of houselessness. We currently serve the one meal a week in Sisters and have nowhere to grow. We have actually looked to try and find a spot where we might be able to serve more meals here, and we can't find any place. I have been to the proposed site of the Shelter and Navigation Center, and I can see the promise it provides. We would like to be a part of it. And I encourage you all to support this establishment of shelter and services as a way to get ahead of the much larger crisis that's coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Evelyn Bellotti Bush.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. My name is Evelyn Bellotti Bush. I live at 14504 Crossroads Loop. I have been involved with our cold weather shelter since its onset. In 2016, as most of us know, we had the individual who passed away in a car because of our cold weather. In 2017, 3 of our churches just opened their doors and said, what can we do so this never happens again? We then ran a shelter between the 3 churches until COVID hit. Once COVID hit, things kind of got changed. And at that time, I have volunteered not only for a cold weather shelter, I'm also and have been an active volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. I truly believe our community needs more affordable housing, along with finding an opportunity for those who are unhoused right now to become housed. So in 2020, a group of us sat at our park, 6 feet apart, because we were in the middle of COVID, and we said, hey, Shepherd's House needs us to find our own feet. And we went, okay. And a group of us just stepped up and said, we're here for the long haul. We're here to make sure none of our neighbors ever have to experience the cold. We got our 5013C, whatever all those numbers are, and off we went. I came to you probably in 2021 as a president of that board at that time, asking for, we were trying to get a grant to buy another building, and of course all of that went belly up. Since that time, I have had to pull away from the board, not because I do not believe in this effort, I just got tired of shoveling snow, so I'm kind of like not here in the wintertime anymore. So I do everything I can to help with the shelter when I am here in our great city. So I am here to ask you to really think about how we can help our neighbors. For those people who have come here and said, oh, they're so concerned about I guess being afraid of these individuals, I invite them to come and volunteer. Get to know our neighbors, hear their story personally. If you haven't done that, when we get our shelter up and running again, I hope you come and break bread with us. You listen to these individuals, you hear their story, and then we can become their hope. We can then be trusted by them for them to have us send them in the right area to get the steps they need, if that be their choice, to go on and become a working individual. We know for some that's not always the case. We have a lot of success stories, and I'm sure this council knows about those success stories. You've heard about them. Unfortunately, a lot of our community hasn't. They want to hear about our bad. It's kind of like the, airplane crashes. You don't hear about all of them that take off and land successfully. You only want to hear about the one that didn't make it. We do have a lot of success stories. And so I urge you, they've got the money. They've got a plan. You have a community wanting to help. So for those who haven't come to volunteer to hear the stories, I ask you, please, once we get up and running again, you come and volunteer. You will find your neighbors are loving individuals.
Thank you.
Nancy Abersold.
Thanks for the opportunity. I live at 133 West Heising Drive in Clear Pine, and I am a recent transplant to Sisters. I moved here because it's beautiful and it's safe and it's small town, and I've gotten to know my neighbors. And I am a transplant from Santa Cruz, California. And I lived there for many, many years, ever since I was a little girl. And I have watched the homeless crisis in that town just drastically change the character and the quality of life of what I remember enjoying as a young person. I went to college there, and it truly has become an unbearable place to live. And that's a big reason why I moved here, to be free from that, to be free from the fear, the filth, the graffiti, the drug paraphernalia. It was literally a shock to my nervous system every single day when I would exit the place where I lived. And I really don't want to see that happen again. And I was, a member of progressive political organizations and care about the unhoused, and have worked in the nonprofit field my whole life for the betterment of society. And I am just very fearful about where this proposed homeless shelter, and it's not, in my view, just an emergency shelter. This is sounding more to me like a full-time homeless resource center. And that one of the things that hasn't, to my satisfaction, and I don't know to anyone's satisfaction, been looked at is, what's the transportation path going to be for people who need these services? And again, we're not just talking about emergency shelter here. That I had a bit of a friendliness to. But frankly, just sitting here tonight and hearing that this is going to be a full-time resource center with people coming and going all of the time, probably cutting right through my neighborhood, when this is what I've tried to escape from and spent a good amount of money to do, it's just frightening to me. I think there's so many more questions that need to be asked and answered before a decision can be made. My recommendation would be to have more dialogue, more public forums like this. I don't think the council's even come close to asking the number of questions that need to be asked of what sounds like a really wonderful organization, but I think there are too many unanswered questions. And the big fear that I have is that there's no restriction on this becoming a full-time shelter with camps and noise and just disturbance to our beautiful community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark Tyler.
Mark Tyler, 456 West Sisters View Place. My experience with the cold weather shelter started when I did some shifts in the winter of 2019. Got to know some of the volunteers that worked there, and pursued the care of those who lived in the woods. Everybody I met was involved because of their life experience and their desire to ensure that others were safe during extreme weather. Most of them were followers of Jesus and represented several local churches. In February of 2020, I began serving on the elder board of Sisters Community Church. It was a challenging time for everyone. When we couldn't meet in person, we figured out how to stream services and had parking lot services in sketchy weather. And when the Sisters Christian Academy closed, we pivoted to share the space with SPRD because we wanted to engage and support the Sisters community. In September of 2020, when fires torched the western slopes of the Cascades, the elders talked through possible shelter and relief efforts. The church has a considerable campus, a commercial kitchen, but the majority of the evacuees fled west and our involvement was limited to relief funding. However, it brought to the forefront the fact that ours was a facility that could be leveraged in a disaster, and that if we had a major event on the east side of the Cascades, we could be called on to shelter and feed refugees. There are several good reasons for leveraging the available state funding and supporting the creation of a permanent place for a shelter in Sisters. The first, just from my own experience, is that we live next door to active volcanoes and in a forest. And you may believe this is for houseless individuals, but we could all be there in the wake of an extreme event. And having a facility that is funded for that and the infrastructure to support it could be critical. The churches of the area are growing, and the local population have limited space to continue supporting the cold weather shelter by offering space. At Sisters Community Church, we've gone from 150 to 500 over the last 2 years.
Congratulations.
Sisters Cold Weather Shelter has services and a mission that supports houseless individuals and families with the goal of moving them out of the woods and off the streets. It is the dedication of the volunteers and community members who maintain relationships with the houseless community that keeps Sisters a livable, loving community. And, you know, without some way to move people on into a productive life, we're just asking for the mess that we see in other locations.
Thank you.
All right, Timmy. Okay, Mandy Seeley.
Hello, Mandy Seeley. I live on Brooks Camp Road. I am a founding member of the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter. I've been on the board. I've lived in Sisters a little over 7 years, 3 of those of which were in the forest with my children. I'm here tonight to show my support for the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter and the plan that they have. This has been attempted before. This is not the first time I have stood in front of this council and had this conversation. It doesn't matter where it is, when it is, who's involved, or anything else. People are not going to want it here. Our neighbors living outside is a crisis. It's been a crisis since I moved here, and it's only getting worse. These folks are not camping. Camping is fun, something you do with your family on a weekend or a week when you're on vacation. These people are surviving every single day outside in the smoke, in the rain, in the cold. It doesn't matter. Priority 4 of the Coordinated Houseless Response Office, of which Councilor Blum is a part of, the city and county partnership, the strategic plan says to improve access to all types of shelter. That is what we are trying to do. One of the concerns from the community is the lack of services. That is what we are trying to do. This is an asset for the entire community. Nobody said this is just for our unhoused neighbors and forget everyone else. I used to work at Best Western as a housekeeper. I remember locals coming in when they had fires in their houses and they had to come to the hotel and stay there. That is something that this building could be used for. Change is hard, and sometimes it's scary. I understand that there are concerns. But I ask, do any of these folks come out in the middle of winter in crisis response, like the volunteers of the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter do when they don't have a building to provide services out of. One of the things that we risk is losing this money if we get denied this process. This is not the state coming in to say, here's what you should do, and we're going to force it. They said, here's some money, what can you do with it? Look around the room. This is not the state. These are your community members. These are people that live here and care about the people that live in the forest. We always talk about doing things the Sisters way, and to me, that means coming together. Let us rise above fear and embrace the values of compassion, empathy, and unity as we work towards creating a brighter future for all of our neighbors. A lot of folks have said tonight that the places that they came from were unbearable because of different reasons, mostly involving unhoused people. As someone who has been unhoused for nearly the majority of my time here, hearing our community talk about the other parts of our community is unbearable to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. All right, that's all of our live ones. We have a lot of people on Zoom. Carrie, do you want to run that from your end?
Yeah, I will. So on Zoom, if people would like to speak, if you could use the raise your hand, and I will call on you if you could just keep your hand raised. So I'm going to start at the top, RM, and if you could please state your name and your address. And unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, you ready?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm Rick Marai, and I live off of Coyote Springs. And I just have some concerns. First of all, I'm confused. What is this concept? It really, tonight, there's been talk about transitional housing.
Actually, can you wait a second? We have people leaving the building and it's a little loud and we want to be able to hear everybody's comments. We'll let you know when you can start speaking in about a few seconds here. Sorry about that.
Did I cause everybody to leave? What's going on?
Our seats are very uncomfortable, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
I think that's
okay.
half of it.
I thought maybe I said something.
Everybody in the audience, thank you. Everybody, thank you. Okay.
Okay, please continue. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's great. I just have some, I'm confused. I don't know what this is. There's talk tonight about I don't know the concept. Is it a halfway house? Is it a step up transitional facility? Is it going to serve the mentally challenged folks? And because of that, I think I kudos to the organization that got this grant. Okay, but I think that this proposal is really poorly conceived. It's ill-conceived. There are a lot of holes in it. And I think when the council queried the board members, there were a lot of what ifs and we're not sure, and we'll tackle that when we get to it. And so there are a lot of questions of, vetting applications. Are you going to recruit? What's the intake policy? Are you going to actually outreach and head out to the forest and try to get the houseless people? I think the $1.5 million is not enough. If you're talking about $1 million facility, you have a $500,000 operating budget. That's nothing. And I mean, that doesn't address day-to-day maintenance, capital expenditures, and the hiring of staff. And also another thing too is I'm concerned about the transparency or the availability of information on this organization's website. I looked over it and it's a 7-page website. There's no list of the board members. There's no inclusion of the IRS 990 nonprofit P&L. There's really no contact information other than a form email that you fill out and somebody will contact you, which I did, and nobody's contacted me. And then they have, and perhaps this will change, but they have job openings for a coordinator at $22 an hour. How are you going to get a professional who's versed in these kinds of issues at $22 an hour? And that's 20 hours a week. And I'm sure that that will change, but I think you're looking at, if you were to get an ED or an executive director or somebody versed in these issues, you'd be paying a lot more than that. And so I think that the $1.5 million is nothing. There was a question about what's going to happen ongoing, and then they came up with donations and all that. But I think a commitment to having a building, I think, is out of reach, and I think it's ill-conceived. I think perhaps they should come back in 6 months or a year after they iron all this out. One of the council members asked about a strategic plan. There isn't any. There's no plan at all, other than we'll get the money and then we'll problem solve as we go along. One thing I'd like to suggest is get this money and form a consortium with the churches. Hire an executive director to oversee these funds, continue your nonprofit, and form a consortium with the several churches or organizations in the community that would want to participate in this. And I think that they would love getting underwriting so they can serve this population, the house's population.
Great. Thank you so much. You're over 3 minutes, and can you wrap it up real quick?
Yeah. So I think that it's I think unfortunately as the proposal's written now, it's doomed to failure. Okay, and again, I don't know who's on the board. I don't know who the board members are. What are your backgrounds? Do you have any accountants? Do you have any professional people in crisis management? What's your background? I think the board president, who's in molecular biology or whatever that was, that's not adequate. That doesn't cut it. So I think you guys have a lot more work to do, and I think we're all here to help the community, the houseless. But I think the way that it's written now, it's not going to work. And
all right, thank you, Rick. We appreciate it. Go ahead, Carrie. Just a reminder to people on Zoom. I'm sorry, Carrie. We're just trying to get 3 minutes each, so everybody gets the same amount of time. Thank you.
Casey Roscoe.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. My name is Casey Roscoe. I live at 66500 Gherkin Market Road, which is currently the no man's land of the Tumalo Irrigation District. I consider Sisters my hometown. I grew up in Sisters. I went to Sisters Elementary, Sisters Junior High School. We didn't have a full high school then, but we're friends, and there was 4 of my siblings, and we were friends with a number of the families of people that spoke tonight, the T-Waltz and so many others, the Moyers, Nelsons, Elliots, Hoyts, and so forth. So have been moving away from and back to this hometown community for years. And the most recent one is my family moved back here, myself, my husband, and my kids last year after a 6-year stint in Eugene, Oregon. And I'm here to deliver a cautionary tale, if you will. I just want to start with some facts, because I think you'll be able to draw some conclusions. With 3,533 nonprofit organizations, Lane County has the most nonprofits per capita of any county in America. There are the most per capita organizations that are there to help. Another stat is Eugene, Oregon has the most homeless per capita of any city in America. According to recent FBI data, the total crime rate in Eugene is 87.2% higher than the national average. So per their numbers, Eugene's total crime index is a 5, meaning it is safer than 5% of US neighborhoods. My husband and I had a restaurant in downtown Eugene, and he referred to being down there as being in an open air insane asylum. As we tried to address the crime problem and the safety problem, which was related to the homeless problem and the nonprofit problem of so many groups that were there to help them, therefore, so many people went there to be helped. There was a word that was weaponized in Eugene, and it was used like a billy stick to beat anyone who had any questions for the sake of their safety, their community, or their businesses. They were beaten into submission, and I promised myself I would never sit by quietly and allow this word to be used to hurt people again. And I've seen it already in the Facebook posts and other things in relation to this issue. And that word is compassion. I feel like people feel like they had to defend their very soul, and that should never be the case. If somebody's sitting there saying, don't question this, you need to have compassion. I saw that time and time again, and people gave up trying to protect their community, trying to protect their family, trying to protect their business, because they were made to feel like bad people for even questioning. But
Casey,
that word compassion, I
Casey,
realized,
you're
yeah,
at 3 minutes, so if you can wrap it up, that'd be great. Thank you.
yep.
Thank you.
I realized that word was very granular, and it wasn't for the community. It was only for a very specific, very small group. And I just hope that we can consider the safety and well-being of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Carrie,
All
how many
right.
hands do we have raised online?
I just have one more raise, and that's Michael Curley.
That's a little less than I was expecting. Go
All
ahead,
right. Can everyone hear me okay?
Michael.
Yes. Hello, Michael Curley. I'm over here on 700 McKinney Ranch here in Sisters. I just wanted to speak to, I used to work for a company called Epic Property Management, who manages Tamarack Village here in Sisters, who is a partner in the rehousing of a lot of people. That is a family complex that I did all the handyman work on for a little bit, helped the current guy there. And then I also did Emma's House and Horizon House in Bend, which are full care facilities that have about 10 beds at Emma's and about 12 at Horizon House. Through this, I saw the condition the units were left in, the people there, and just the overall demeanor of what I experienced on the premises was a lot of people just, they didn't appreciate it. They were there, they would smoke cigarettes out front, they drink alcohol, they'd be under the influence. The units were left in horrible condition. I did a unit at Tamarack Village where drugs were sold out of the unit. It was left in such bad shape that we had to re-drywall the unit, repaint the unit, retexture it, new flooring. It was a $10,000 plus remodel with 4 guys there for 3 weeks. And a lot of this, you know, is people who are a next step up from the people who will be at that first entrance. They're people who are already screened. They're people who are already through programs. And when a site is not monitored, it's just left for them to do whatever they want. And they'll gang up, sell drugs to each other. They'll find the next deal. They'll find the next place to rob together. And being a handyman, they confided in me a lot, thinking that, you know, I didn't really care. And some of the stories that I heard there were unbelievable. Women would get taken advantage of from the men who were there. You know, it was just a really bad scene. And it's not something, you know, I want seen to the community. And I know that budget is not enough. I was paid $60,000 a year to be a handyman, and there was 3 of us. And the amount of work that we had was unbelievable. We were fixing holes in the wall. We were fixing areas that people would urinate in the corners. We were every day fixing something new because they would just damage the area. And, you know, if this is a temporary shelter, that might be different. But if people are going to be permanently housed, they're going to need a place to sleep. And, you know, if you want people smoking cigarettes out front all day and, you know, saying mean things to each other and having people chase you around a parking lot, it might be good, but that's not something I want to see brought to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Michael Merrill-Prieden, we have one more person that raised their hand, or 2 more now. Jessica's iPhone. So Jessica, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, hi there. So my main concern was how does this grant money that's coming in, how does this benefit the City of Sisters elected people such as yourself sitting on the council? I just would really like to know, do you guys get money in your pocket for approving these kinds of bills, or I don't know how it works. And to me, it just doesn't make any sense. That it just feels one-sided. We've got such a small little community here. And it seems as though a lot of the people that are coming in to serve on our city council are not from here. And I feel like they're trying to make it from where they are from, even though they left there because they didn't like it there. So that is my question. I would like answered.
I lived here since 1988,
Okay.
and I receive nothing from this proposal.
Okay. Thank you for answering that, because that honestly was one of my biggest questions.
We're all
Was
volunteers. We don't get
how
paid
does
to
the
be
city
here at all.
council benefit from, or how does the city council members profit from approving such bill, like allowing this to happen to our small community?
I want to know about.
Okay.
All right. Jessica, can I get your last name and your address, please?
I think Jessica wishes to remain.
Yes, my name is Jessica Pickle, Pickle. I live at 973 East Ranch Avenue. That's right by the elementary school that I would like to very much not see turned into a homeless shelter.
Right. Thank you for that.
Thank
and then
you.
Next person up is Mike.
Mike, what's your last name? And your address, please. Mike?
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you now. Thank you. What's your name and address, please?
Yeah, sorry about that. My phone was a little screwed up. It's Mike Davis, and it's 352 Hood Avenue. And I'm a new business owner in Sisters, which I love the town, love everything about it. And been listening to this thing and been hearing about it on Facebook and everywhere else. And it sounds like it's very complex, just like the homeless situation that it's going to need more time to figure out what this is. But I will say something that just came up the other day that I learned about in town. And I know we're talking about folks living in the woods, ladies with kids and all this stuff, but I don't really feel like that's what this is going to be about. There was a homeless guy who posted up behind Dirk Godby's art studio about 2 weeks ago, and they ended up arresting him on the roof of the Sister Smokehouse that evening. Found out that the guy had warrants all over Oregon and other places, was taken back to Portland and arrested. The other thing, I'm new to this community and heard about the egg lady that was murdered by the homeless guy. I've seen the Hunnell Road stuff firsthand. Those aren't pleasant people. These are people that need serious mental help. And, if we're talking about a few folks that are living out in the woods, that are down on their luck, that are working in Sisters, figure out a way to help them any way necessary. I'll be the first one to try to do that. But I feel like that's not what this is going to be. This is going to be like every other failed shelter in Bend, Redmond, Lapine, California, San Francisco, LA, New York, you name it. I don't know one that's successful, and ever even heard of one that's successful. And I don't feel like these folks really gave enough to say they're qualified to run this shelter. So hopefully we can learn more in the future, and this isn't going to be a quick decision either way, because I want to know more, and hopefully we all do, and figure out what the right thing is for Sisters. But as a new business owner here, what I've heard tonight, it doesn't sit well. So I know you got your work cut out for you, and hopefully you can make the right decisions. But I do appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mike.
And that is everybody.
Do you want to fill out a thing and make a statement? You have to fill out a piece of paper. Let's do it before you speak, and then
Will that be a community vote? Is it going to be a community vote on this?
I mean, Jesus Christ, I worked for the fucking state of Oregon. I'd rather get by you. So.
No.
We're so far behind that you make it.
Sorry.
I was coming back from 11 in the morning. I got the big sandwich. I got that short, this is big. It's all like that. I don't, I'm not real hungry right now. Sometimes you want
It's still recorded. I might have lost control of the screen, so I might come back.
Okay, or text me or whatever.
Yeah.
Joe, can you hear me?
I'm the opposite.
No, I'm the opposite.
Yeah, I'm like, give me everything, junk food. Yeah.
If you see me getting fat, I'm stressed.
We don't want that. We'll keep the stress down.
That's right. If I get thin, I'm good.
Yeah.
Joe, can you hear me?
There's gotta be a 20-degree difference between the waffle.
Joe?
Well, it was cooking in here, so it drinks now.
Well, I think now it's left.
It's pretty freezing. Of course, that.
Hot in here still?
No, it's cold in here.
Yeah,
You want us to turn it back up?
Yeah. At least a 72 or 3, maybe.
yeah, 72 is good. I don't know what it's now. I think it's 62.
I didn't realize how cold it was until I went in the lobby and I went,
Hey,
oh my God, it was so cold in there.
Yeah, once the doors close,
They're, they're,
Oh, yeah.
they're for staff, whatever's left. Yeah. Good.
So much of this is just a matter of trust. Do you trust?
Alpha's comments are, I don't know, not strong opposition, but if it's this, and it's like, we're talking about conditioning units, you know, this is exactly what we'll approve.
Yeah, I wanted to get Louis on the record. For an emergency, because right now they do come.
I was over by the temperature.
But as part of this new situation, you don't have to, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't. That would be a way of saying, we will come to the city before we say there's a smoke emergency or a heat emergency, and get a declaration, not that they have to, but as part of their commitment to the community. And I think that that's.
Just text me.
Here, does the county like send out an alert, hey, it's under 32 degrees, we're opening up warming centers, you know?
Oh.
I don't think so. I don't remember that.
Yeah. Misremembering because I wasn't a part of it, but I'm pretty sure that you guys have a local one that says you guys can declare an emergency. And once that emergency is declared, churches and other places that aren't ordinarily open,
It would be allowed.
can be open for use during the duration.
Yeah. I don't know if you would agree to something like that, but at least a courtesy.
Well, like I
People ask
said.
for transparency and communication, so.
It would allay people's that they.
Joe, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Like I said, it's.
Joe, can you hear me?
We want to go home. They're taking your input. This is actually helping. I'm taking notes.
Yeah, I was half about to jump into it. For everyone's edification.
Right. All right, let's get back to business. right, we're restarting. Carrie, if you stopped it, restart it. If you haven't, great. If it's still going. Visitor communication is over. Next up is a consent agenda. I need a motion and a second.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 4 of us, 4-0. On to council business, public improvement contract for biosolids removal. Paul.
I move we approve. Sorry.
Not yet. Let's get
He
Paul's
bothered to
input.
come.
I know, he stayed up late.
It's $300,000 almost, so let's make sure we know exactly what's going on.
I wasn't serious.
No, I know.
And you guys have been through this before.
Yes.
So this isn't the first time. So this project is part of our 2023 wastewater master plan, and it had a time frame of essentially 1 to 3 years that we need to get into lagoon number 2. Remember, in 2021 we did lagoon number 1. So that's a plan for this project, and we put it out to bid. We only received 1 bid, and interesting enough, it's the same company that did it last time. So it is a little more expensive, about 30% more than it was last time.
Boy, I'm hearing that a lot.
It is a common theme for sure, especially in the construction industry and mobilization costs, because I went to them and was like, why? And that was a huge part of it. Just getting equipment here, getting people here, just raised the price. So we are looking to remove about 500,000 gallons, and it'll be treated with just hydrated lime. And that lime will be introduced in a liquid form in a mixing tank, enclosed, and it'll go directly into an enclosed tank truck that will haul across the Lazy Z. It won't haul on public roads. And then it'll dispose of it on our effluent field out on the east end of the Lazy Z. And then within 6 hours, we have to have that tilled in, actually disced in. So we'll rent a tractor with a disc and we'll basically be right behind them. And that's a DEQ requirement. And really just to keep any odors down, any nuisance, flies, that type of deal. But it'll be ingrained in the soil essentially as a soil conditioner, fertilizer. And then we'll plant a crop and grow hay next spring. So going full circle. Yep. This is a maintenance project. It's not a capacity building project. So it all comes out of the operating fund and we can't use STCs for it. So that's where the dollars were budgeted. Since it was over the budgeted amount, we will have to do a supplemental budget with Joe at some point in the future.
That's okay. Joe loves it. He loves it.
Any questions?
All right.
Happy to.
I did have a question.
Okay.
My question is to the general manager, Joy. Did you get an opportunity to ask him about the?
Yeah, I asked Paul briefly about that.
Okay.
The question was about the residue on the neighboring property and if it has to do with the lime. Yeah, and Paul's response, and Paul, I don't have to answer for you, but it's a mystery. We don't think it's from our property, and we don't see a way that it could be.
No, our lime gets incorporated inside a sealed tank and it turns into a liquid. And then again, it's disced into the ground within 6 hours. So it's definitely not from our operations.
Okay, and when you say disced into the ground, is that just floating?
Basically plowed into the ground. Imagine.
Okay. So it's not sprinkled.
So it gets land applied on top of the ground, and then we run a tractor and a disc over it that incorporates it. Essentially looks like a plowed up field at the end of it.
Because this was a question that came from a constituent who had a conversation with the owner of the current Lazy Z on the north side. And they had, after what they thought was a sprinkling with the wastewater system, they had this white color on their grounds. And I don't know if it was because of wind or, like you said, it must have been something else.
Could be a pollen of some type. Could be anything, really.
Okay.
And I've been in contact with the owner of the Lazy Z. So
Perfect. Okay.
they're on our Public Works Advisory Board.
Okay.
So conveniently, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
We're going to call him the mead man.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. But it's good. That's a good conversation to have.
Oh, I'd have the same question. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Anything else? Does anybody want to discuss anything with that project? I mean, I think that, Paul, I've been talking good about you for years, but I'm going to keep doing it. I mean, this is how we stay ahead of the game. We're not worried about having to replace a pond because it gets gunked up or too far down the road where you can't fix it. And good maintenance is good maintenance. Is there anything you want to add to this, Jordan?
No.
Manager? Okay.
No, sir.
Will
All
this
right.
have to be done to the third lagoon?
No, that's just a holding lagoon
Okay.
that stores it for the winter, and then we drain it in the summer.
Good
Okay,
question
thank you.
too.
Yep.
Good question. No, it's good. No, it's a good question. All right. If there's no more discussion, we could do a motion.
I move to award a public improvement contract to HPC Industrial in the amount of not to exceed $298,300 for the 2023 biosolids removable project, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract and any necessary contract changes, orders, and/or amendments within a contract contingency amount of 5% of the contract.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Final discussion. I'm just going to say it. I'm glad Gary's not here because no poop jokes. This is amazing. Except that was a poop joke. So I guess I messed it up.
Yeah.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's 4-0. Thank you, Paul.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
All right. Other business, staff comments. Okay, Jordan, your first meeting we had, I didn't call on you to run the comments. Do you want to run the comments or do you want me to do it?
You know, I'm comfortable with whatever format you're comfortable with and
All right.
practicing. If you want to run them, or
I've been doing it for years now, so I might as well just do it. Jordan, you're first.
Sure.
You're the city manager. So
that's
you
funny.
go.
I just asked the staff if they prefer if I do the full report or have them come and give their comments. I think we'll probably keep them brief tonight, but I think this council does appreciate hearing from staff, and they don't have a problem attending the council meetings and giving updates. And you know, I don't want to steal their thunder either in giving reports to you and having a chance to have some dialogue with our directors. So I'm happy continuing that practice and look to them to provide their updates. I'll start with Scott on development services. Obviously, he's been busy with the shelter work that we've been busy with too, but.
Sure, yeah. It's strange to be addressing you from up on the dais.
Should I get down there?
I feel like I should be stepping down.
No, I should get down there.
You want to get down? Yeah. Yeah, that would be different. So just a couple highlights here. Give you an update on the UGB sufficiency report update that we have had our consultant working on. I should have a draft of that out here by the end of next week. So we have started talking about how to present that to council and to planning commission, and the thought came up that perhaps we should do a joint meeting with the planning commission and the council. We try to do those at least once a year. I think it's been a while since we've done one. And then the question becomes, is that the only item on there, or are there other items that you guys want to discuss? I haven't asked the planning commission that question yet, but if there are any additional items, then please let me know. I mean, the UGB report is probably a good solid subject right there. It'll probably take up most of the time, but let me know if there's anything else.
How large do you expect that report to be?
Probably, I think the last one was 20 to 30 pages, maybe.
Okay.
Something like that, yeah.
That's not so bad.
Nothing like the wastewater master plan.
You might, just a suggestion, you might want to ask the planning commission, is there anything they want to discuss with us?
I will.
Because I know that they've had some discussions in the past, wish we were a little closer with the council. And so, you know, if there's something in there that maybe it's a procedural thing or something, I think that I would be open to hearing what they want to talk about. Because I think we get what we need for the most part, but I want them to feel included and, you know, viable, and not just get all the ugly meetings about gas stations and giant apartment complexes and things like that.
I'd be interested in the STR conversations.
So,
Yeah.
so that's a separate item that we will be bringing forward to you in a work session in the future that we'll try to get policy direction from you guys, and then that'll channel back through the planning commission as well, because it's a development code.
Yeah, it's something I was going to discuss later, and that is, it's on our work plan. We, you know, I like hearing comments from the public, and some of them are about STRs, but the fact is, we heard them last year before our goals, and we're like, okay, let's throw it on there, and we're working on it, right?
And the same thing with dark skies.
Well, yes, that too. Thanks for taking all my thunder, my dark sky thunder. No,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. Anyway, that was just my idea. Go ahead, Scott. Sorry, I didn't mean to slow you down.
That's all right. Just want to let you guys know that the grant, the housing planning assistance grant through DLCD to potentially fund, you know, work on the UGB in the future, should council approve that, was submitted by the deadline in July. If that doesn't go forward again, we could pivot those dollars to other projects easily. So. Speaking of dark skies, we had a work session with the planning commission last week. First one we've had in about a year. You know, it got sidetracked with some other projects, so that got put on the back burner. So it's coming forward again. We've actually engaged with a dark skies consulting group who are kind of experts in helping communities guide through these kinds of situations, and he was on the line last week, and found to be, I think the planning commission found it to be very helpful as a resource, and something that would also be available for council when the time comes. And then just an update on the Parks Board. I don't know if anybody else is going to bring this up. We did meet with the Parks Board last week, and the subject was dog parks. We felt we've been getting a lot of inquiries about it from the public, and you know, we've talked about this for years. It's time to kind of have a discussion about where it possibly could be, and how big is it, and what kinds of amenities. Is it a pilot program for a little while before it's permanent? And so we got a receptive feedback from the Parks Board. They want more information, and Paul and I are going to kind of tag team that one to bring them back more information in October, to kind of start zeroing in on that conversation a little bit more. And then also the Sisters Community Garden Group has approached the Parks Board, interested in potentially utilizing a city park space for their relocated garden, which is currently at the on the airport property, but they've gotten message that they have to vacate that. I think they did say they were going to get another year more than they thought, so it's not as imminent as it was initially looking. But so that's another thing we'll work internally through staff, and then the Parks Board, and then eventually with council on.
Did they have a place they had an eye on?
I think they prefer the Sun Ranch Park, the Pollinator Park, AKA.
That's pretty small.
It is a little smaller than I think what they were initially looking at, and we had them go back and exhaust all private property options. And through that process, they were gone for about a couple of months, and they came back, and through that evaluation process, they think they can make that property work. So.
Will it leave room for the butterflies?
Well,
we'll do a feasibility analysis on that.
So tiny little consultants.
May I ask
Yeah. I mean, are you done?
Yes.
Okay.
on the dark skies, that letter from Paul Bennett, may I ask what he thought of that? I mean, is that okay? Is that normal? I just want to know what you think of that letter.
Jordan says sure.
He was making a proposal to do a survey, and he offered a survey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that in the conversation. I haven't had a chance to really.
Yeah, because it just came today, so
Okay.
you might not have.
He mentioned that a little bit in his public
I don't even
comments.
remember seeing it.
Yeah,
Oh.
it just came at like
Just one additional thing to that, the Planning Commission chair wanted staff to do a little bit more outreach with the business community on the ordinance, so I've started taking the effort to.
For the dark skies?
Yes, like a cross-section of the business community, get their thoughts on it too, so.
Well, we all have thoughts, right? So.
Oh, yeah.
I have a question about the dark skies. We had one of our people say that lights during the day are an issue with dark skies. Is that a thing?
No, I
Okay.
think she was just meaning,
Okay, just lights being on in general. Okay.
saying that was so wasteful.
I didn't get that. I didn't
Yeah.
get that part. Okay, I got it. So, all right, thank you. Anybody else have anything for Scott? Thank you, sir.
I realized, Mayor, that after I said continue the process, I then directed to have Scott. So if you would like to.
Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Okay, I don't have that much. You know, there's always exciting things going on in the finance land. But I will like to acknowledge a couple of our admin staff, Kim and Julie, they've been fielding a lot of these questions and calls regarding the topics that was discussed in the workshop. And they've done a wonderful job of representing the city, representing you all, being patient, being understanding of a lot of these questions and inquiries and directing people to where they need to go. And they've done that proudly. So just want to acknowledge them with that.
Nice.
Has the city's annex bill gone up at all, or no? I'm just kidding. Just wondering.
And that's
okay. That's it. Really, no Excel spreadsheet tips or anything. I think that's going to be.
You know, there's always a good fill or a good, there's a good tool that we can go over. Maybe what's my finance, Excel tip of the month. We'll come with.
Do we need to have Carrie speak? She's sick and back in the back. Okay, I think that's good. Paul.
Unless she wants to.
She can if she wants, but man,
Yeah.
Lost and found.
So got some good news. I was able to finish my advanced plan review during the workshop. So I made productive use of that time. I still listened. This is for the Locust US 20 roundabout. So we are at that stage. As soon as we get the advanced plan review done, we'll go into final design. We get that done, and then it gets shipped off to Salem for final approval. During that time, ODOT's still continuing to work on right-of-way acquisition. They ran into a little bit of a delay, so it's going to push out bid let a couple months. So they're looking at bid let around February 1st. And remember, it was going to be at the end of December, and then construction start April 1st. And they're looking to have essentially the main line and the North Locust part of the project complete by Memorial Day. Wow. And then they'll use June, July to finish up South Locust and a little bit of work over on Hood, which is a lot less busy than, what the alternate route will be doing. So they say they can hit that timeline. We are going to have Bob come out and tell you that he's going to hit that timeline himself.
Well, I've been watching the other roundabouts, and I'm like, they're not horribly behind, but they're behind a little.
They're moving pretty well.
Oh, they're moving.
Yeah,
but
yeah. No, I think, and they're gaining valuable construction, staging, traffic control experience.
Yes, I think that's where we're going to benefit.
And we're going to be a lot easier to build because the majority of the roundabout is actually off the main line. Yep. So they're going to be able to keep traffic running east-west down the existing highway. So
I'd like to apologize for the tennis courts and the pickleball courts that are going to just disappear, but they are.
Hopefully they'll show up somewhere else.
Yes.
Yep. Keep your fingers crossed.
Are you listening? Okay.
We got 90% plans for the Barkley Drive corridor improvements. We did the plan review on that and met with the engineering staff last week. And they're going to be wrapping those plans and the specifications up by the end of the month. And then we can start a bake sale fundraising program. So cost estimate came in at about 4.2 million.
Oh boy. Wow.
Yeah. So
I'll start pounding the payment again. I've done it before.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at potentially some phasing options so we can get some of it built, with the roundabout project to help the alternate route function better. So we're going to be exploring all those things with you guys. So.
I mean, kind of the first thing is straightening it out, right? I mean, isn't that one of the first deals? I mean, it doesn't work for the trucking unless it's straighter.
It still does. It may not work at the 30-mile-an-hour posted speed.
Gotcha.
But potentially the biggest thing is the Locust Barkley intersection, getting that stop control changed and getting a nice smooth movement through that intersection. Gotcha. So we're going to look at that with the team as well.
Okay.
We got well number 1 back in the ground, back up online, and water tested out great. So we had a a person come out. We do it every year on all of our pumps. He tests the vibration frequency on all of our pumps and motors. That way we can track year after year. If we start getting some more noise or vibration, we know that we can prepare for a maintenance project versus a catastrophe. So, but all of our well pumps tested out great. So good news there. Just so you know, our charging stations over at the library will be down a couple days next week. They're going to be doing a changeover on the electrical for the library. So if you get any questions, that's why. And they'll be down for a couple days.
Due to maintenance, so you put down due to maintenance and they won't even be available, so.
And it's amazing. I mean, I walked by this morning and all 4 spaces were filled. So they're getting used, definitely. And then speaking of that, charging stations, we applied for the climate action grant, climate reduction grant, and we should hear in the fall, and that's for the charging stations that will go over at East Portal. And then lastly, East Portal, we finally got a STIF grant agreement from COIC that we're reviewing. Garrett's going to help us out with that. We'll hopefully be able to get everything where both parties are accessible to it and get it to you guys at the 23rd meeting. And this is for a little less than $1 million for the design and construction of phase 1 of the East Portal. So as soon as we get that agreement, we can start going. I've already met with a consultant to get a scope and cost estimate, and I'll get a couple more of those and we can pick one and be off and running. So
Cool.
that's all I had.
Oh, I see. Okay. Sorry, it's late, I'm tired.
Yeah, I had this little nap and it wasn't enough.
Go ahead, any questions for Paul?
Well, I had a question, but it might not be for you and it might be for gentlemen down here, but in regards to the East Portal, you know, there was a news article about Megabus merging with Pacific Crest bus lines. And it got me thinking of like, hey, we're building this great facility, you know, it'd be good for bus and transit. And then I thought, well, can we make people or entities, companies like that use it? You know, just because we build it, will they come and you know what I mean? Versus them just, you know, pulling up on
STPs or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, it just got me thinking about, you know, you would hope that they great, there's a bus stop, we'll use it, but can, you know.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, part of this concept is create a hub, which would be convenient for people to park their cars, carpool there, and then catch a bus, right? So we're trying, you know, create an area that is going to be attractive for transit to go, rather than usually they want to go where people are. Right? So in the downtown and stuff, we don't happen to have a big parking reservoir, you know, for that type of, you know, longer haul bus. But, you know, I think it's also helping influence them and talking with them and pointing in that direction. And
Like the smaller bus currently uses, you know, parks over in front of the tea shop. And I know that was, you know, entities like Megabus and those types of carriers. I mean, part of their model was like, they just got rid of a bus station and that overhead and just, you know, parked randomly on a city street that they didn't have to pay for. You know, and that was granted quite a few years ago, but I mean, I would hope that they would naturally just gravitate there and be happy for it. But it just got me thinking, like, maybe what.
And they were one of our partners, stakeholders in the master planning design. So part of the sawtooth, the sawtooth design was for their buses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should sell partnership too to Nike, have a swoop on there for $1 million a year or something like that. That'll help us. So
advertise a campground.
Paul's looking at me like you're a nut. Okay, thanks, Paul.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions for Paul? Okay, cool. What do we have left? Just us?
Yeah, you know, just general comments. This was my second meeting, so good to be back.
They're all like this.
They're all,
I was going to say, well, you know, how can we, you know, get 300 people? You know, and so 1 month in, really enjoyed some of the circuit of meeting the community members, been to the Rotary, been to Kiwanis, Forest Service. It's been fun, and pretty much has met or exceeded my expectations for how involved this community is.
the nonprofits, the volunteers. And, so I've had a chance to work in several different communities now, and, everyone is unique, but this is a special place. And, packed room tonight kind of demonstrates that people care about this place, which is not a bad thing. So you've heard me say that before. I do want to thank Scott, of course, and Carrie. A lot of time has been consumed on the shelter issue, and as you could tell, it's an important issue for the community. They're putting a lot of time to make sure that we're reviewing this, as the community expects us to, and working with our legal team and making sure that it meets the criteria. But a lot of communication and management of input, and Carrie assembling all the comments and emails and responding to folks. It does take time, and one of the things I've noticed this first month, and I know the council is interested in this, and I heard this from day one and before, is communication, proactive communication, getting the word out. So as things settle down and we could take a breath and not be so reactive, we're definitely interested in pivoting that way, getting the community more involved and informed about what's going on. And then also just thank you to council. This is a unique process that we went through tonight. It's not a public hearing. It's not a land use proceeding. No other community has done it like this so far that we know. And the public comment was important for us. We attended a community meeting last week on short notice. We heard a lot of concerns. We heard a lot of comments. We know there's folks that support this and have been supporting this for years. And especially the comments that pertain to the criteria in the bill is important for staff, because we do learn things. We were taking notes and listening to the public, and also gave the opportunity for the applicant to hear from the public too, because that's going to be very key for them, and how they propose to be a good neighbor in the community. So thank you to the community, thank you to the council for being open to making this part of your workshop tonight on short notice and moving things around to accommodate that.
Okay, and you're feeling better.
I'm feeling a lot better. That was a couple weeks where that's fatigue, but
that's the main thing. Family's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, it's just up to the four of us. Gary? Yeah, okay, he's not here, so he's dead to
If we
sleep.
keep the meeting going long enough, it will be morning.
Yeah,
by the time.
he can coffee up on us.
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I just briefly want to say that in my update with the meetings for COIC and SEDS, I left off a very important point, which I just told Andrea, which is we did approve supporting CHRO. So that's settled now. It'll be under the purview of COIC with the money
Officially.
with the money still coming from the Deschutes County.
Awesome. Okay.
Yep.
What you got?
I attended the EDCO annual meeting and also the EDCO Sisters Pub, which Eric did a fantastic job of putting that together. That was, what, about 90 people or something in there? Yeah, that attended that. It was a great evening. He did a good job getting the smoke to go the other direction. So, but a great mix of people. Heard about some, great sisters businesses, a lot of them relatively new in the community, and I think, just a lot of good networking and a lot of people having a good time and seeing what sisters had to offer. And so I think it was definitely well worth his effort and our time. So thanks again for that. I attended the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board get together here a couple weeks ago. They were having a regional meeting here and kind of, had an open invitation to elected officials. So I did attend that, which was a very interesting, got to learn about, the work that they do. Obviously, they've been very involved in White Shoes Creek over the years and, the rebirth of that ecosystem, which is fantastic. And, I got to, chat with a lot of interesting people from different parts of the state. They had one young lady who was kind of the representative from Paisley, who's on their board, and we were talking housing, and she was saying, yeah, we got housing problems too in Paisley, and it was, a lot of it is STRs, people from out of state buying up ranches and houses and turning them into short-term rentals and.
So the problems are just because of the rich.
Well, theirs is a little different. But it was funny how similar it was. And, you know, she's like, well, yeah, we don't have a lot of rentals or places for people, you know, to move or their families grow. Or maybe there's an opportunity to build some housing in Paisley if anybody would like to take that on. But I thought that was interesting. I have been invited to at least, I think, I don't know if it's a full term or finish the term of, to join BPAC, which is Deschutes County's Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And Annie Marland, who's the sisters representative, is bowing out. And so they, I had applied for that a few years ago, actually, and so they just reached out to me. I know they have advertised it, but they didn't get a lot of bites, and so they offered if I was interested. So I'm in that process, which will have to be blessed by the county commissioners, probably kind of a consent agenda issue, and then, but our council will have to bless it as well. Well, I think about it. I'm warning you. I'm not springing it on you in the last second, so you get
This
a lot
is
of time
how
to
I
think
get
about it.
paid, right?
Yeah, I know. That's where the big money is at BPAC. The county has tons of money. Nope. Let's see, a couple interesting things. I sat in on their last meeting. They requested that I do that, which was interesting, because there's an ODOT representative there. You know, one interesting factor that came out was the repaving project of 242, which was really supposed to be this year. I think got pushed off, but they're still saying that will be next year, maybe later half of the summer, something like that. But that will most likely involve, you know, the complete closure of 242. You know, which there was, at least from their perspective, an issue they need to get ahead of is through hikers, PCT hikers, getting that message out of that they're not going to be able to use that as a way to get in and out of Sisters. You know, so
unless they hike.
Well, yeah, like over the lava.
Bikes, you said
well, the road's
bikes.
closed.
Oh.
They gotta go over the lava. So anyway, I thought, well, that's, you know, something that some groups are going to need to get ahead of. Let's see, I talked to Ian Reed with the Forest Service a few days ago, and he gave me just a quick update on their facilities. You know, their warehouse project is going really well, and that's going to be finished relatively soon. And then their ranger station is out for bid right now. And they're hoping to break ground on that, I think, in the spring. You know, that only was about a 15-year process. So he's very excited about that. So, and I think that's going to be a huge amenity for the community. You know, it's kind of a de facto visitor center. It will get, you know, his staff into, you know, safe and functioning facilities, and you know, also be able to have some space. He's looking forward to, you know, he has his annual meeting, you know, with the community, and he's like, I'm gonna be able to hold it, you know, at the Forest Service instead of the fire hall. So an exciting amenity for the community coming up. So I think that's all I had.
It's a feather in his cap, but it's a feather in our cap. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Having
no,
a nice
absolutely.
new ranger station. That thing is, the one they have is, woo, it's dated.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that,
And small.
all that money from that they're getting from, you know, the East Portal, and then some is going to that, building that
Yeah,
project.
we're paying for it, of course. No, I'm just kidding.
How their finances work, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? You're up.
I didn't attend anything that ended up in anything worth commenting on.
Okay. You want to say anything about anything else, like today's stuff, or?
No.
I do.
I sort of started to make a gesture, and then I realized I'm being videotaped. And I went, what am I doing?
Right. I wrote down 11 things, 12 things.
Mm.
But I can make them go fast. Some of them are rhetorical. Okay, so there was a lot of talk about it's just the shelter's distance to Clear Pine. I don't take that into consideration because most of the houseless are on the other side of Pine Street, about the same distance. I actually agree with Mandy Seeley about the location will never be a place where everybody can agree upon. I do have concerns about the businesses, of course, but the location itself, I think, I mean, you gotta put it somewhere, and this is as good as I can think of. That's above and beyond all the other considerations, but that point to me, that's just how I feel about it. Okay, so that one's done. Concerned about businesses, okay, I'm good with that. The Space Age gas station comments, text amendment, I'm sure it was notified. We notify everything, do we not? I mean, we have a website, and someone actually said, hey, what a great website. I went on it and found everything I could need and everything like that. So I don't, I hate to hear comments like that, because I know I'm on the inside. I know I'm part of the city group that helps run the city and stuff. But you know what I do when I can't find something? I go to the website, and I can always find something. STRs, easy to find. You know, that information is there. What we have right now is all there. I have a hard question for the cold weather shelter people, and this has to do with the qualification of them as a 501(c)(3). They ran emergency shelters for 2 or 3 months of each year. Is that considered a whole year of experience? I'm not trying to pick on you, but I look at it as, is it amount of time served? Does it matter? Legally, it just kind of says 3 years of operation. Does that mean 3 consecutive years? I don't think we know the answer to that question, A, and Garrett can tell me right or wrong, and B, does it really matter?
I don't think it matters.
Well,
You know,
I think that
doesn't
to
snow
some,
in the
I
summer.
think to some people, we heard very strongly that it does matter.
No, I mean,
And
it
so
doesn't snow in the summer, you know, is what I was saying.
Well, we still have smoke events, and we have we need a cooling shelter too. I get that part. I'm just saying, when we're starting to look at legalities and we're kind of bumping heads with the state legislature and the governor, we just have to be really careful and make sure, and I think we're doing this, I'm not saying we're not, that's a sticky wicket to me. I think that that's kind of a weird thing. I think that both sides have a point, and I don't know what the real answer is, but we'll eventually get there. It's part of the application process. I totally trust city staff to lead us in many ways, but at the same time, sometimes we have to. Okay. If it was put to a ballot, there's no avenue for that. It's never been done. I think it puts us in a different place. And the only rhetorical question I have, and I don't think that we would do that to go to a ballot, but if we did, you're talking about black and white on the issue, and would one side just go crazy on the other side if it was at that point?
Mayor, because it wouldn't be binding, and
Right.
you could only do an advisory vote, and even then, again,
Still not binding.
it wouldn't be binding.
Okay, that's what I figured, but I just wrote it down. Question, are STRs expanding exponentially?
Oh, I know, I wrote that down too, like.
I know you did. I think the clear answer is no, because the stuff we put in place in, I think it was 2019, might have been 2020, severely limited them. And I think that we might even have less now than we had 4 years ago. I don't know, it's not a lot less, but it's also not a lot more. That's fact. I think during this year, when we have these STR discussions, we need to get our data. Hey, how about an Excel spreadsheet with data on it, year to year or whatever? I know we have the data.
For days, yeah.
Yeah, so let's make sure we have the data on that.
That data report, huh?
One of the comments I heard a lot today for the shelter was, so many more questions need to be asked. I kind of agree with that, in the sense that this is our first public event with the city and the staff and the public in the same room. I think I still have more questions. I know when I wake up tomorrow morning, I'll probably have 3 more. So I don't think that that's an unfair statement because I kind of agree with it. I think there's still more questions to be asked regarding just the application and just some of the questions for the shelter. And honestly, I think the shelters, most of this is still kind of up to the shelter in that regard. I think there's just some areas that need to be, there's some clouds that need to be lifted and discussions with the public. And I don't mean to put pressure on the shelter, but I think the shelter outreach needs to be exemplary from now on. As good as you can anyway. I understand that there's other factors and stuff, but I'm just being honest.
When you talk about there's so many more questions that need to be asked. Our staff has to figure out whether or not the shelter has asked the questions that are required.
Right.
Answered the questions that are required.
Right.
And
Andrew, you need to be by the microphone.
and most of those questions that still need to be asked are not part
Right.
of answers to those required
Right.
questions. So the additional questions that need to be asked are an informational.
I
that
agree.
I don't know that does that have to stop the process?
Um, no, I don't feel that it does. I think that there are two processes going on. One of them is the actual application and the legalities of it. The other one is public perception and the cold weather shelter marketing itself to make it, I mean, as much as I want to help the homeless, I'm not the one marketing this cold weather shelter. The cold weather shelters, Sisters Cold Weather Shelter is the one that is like, they went out and got the grant, they're going to buy a building. You know, a lot of it, and I'm not trying to put too much pressure on them, but the reality is a lot of it is still on their plate of public perception. Otherwise, we're always gonna have these questions, right? I'm not trying to downplay what they're trying to do. I'm just saying that I think that there's still a lot there. And I think that what I saw tonight with, people taking notes, I think that some good will come out of that. And we'll see how it goes the next couple of weeks. I don't know.
Mayor, I just
Sure.
point of information on that is, as Garrett mentioned, the process that we're kind of treating this, and having Scott as development services director involved too, is it's not a land use application, but we are processing it with evidence and a record, gathering
Correct.
information, and going to have findings and all that, because correct, they don't have to address every question, right, if it doesn't pertain to the criteria in the House bill, but the burden of proof is still on them to address that criteria. And so we're within, the city's within our rights to ask for more information as it pertains to addressing that criteria.
Yeah, the only other thing I have to question about that particular thing is there was one speaker who said, if it's not on the application, it doesn't matter. And that's more of a Garrett question. I have no idea. Or it's a Garrett and you question, and then it comes to us, and if we have to try and gauge on it, I don't know.
If it's not on the application, it cannot be considered, I think is what he was saying. That we can't ourselves go and look and find information to answer some of the questions that are on there. In other words, he was kind of saying, well, their initial application had X amount of information, and we cannot consider, the staff cannot consider anything that we learn outside of what is actually on that application. Is that true?
I mean, that is an accurate summary of the argument that's being made. What I can say is that the legislation collectively does not say one way or the other because it is silent on so many of these procedural issues. And I didn't see anything citing any specific authority for that position in the letter. So it is amongst the collection of unknowns associated with this legislation that we will do our best to navigate through.
Yeah, that was another one I put down as we need to figure this out.
One other little statement I heard, that people, if the shelter only helped people in Sisters, we'd like it to do that. That's not even legal, right? I mean, the shelter has to be low barrier for everyone, whether they live here or not, whether they're transient or not. Is that correct?
Yeah.
For the most part?
That's rules through COIC, I think.
Yeah, whether that's part of their grant stipulations, whether that falls under some auspice of Fair Housing Act, there's probably a lot there that no one's going to be able to say absolutely yes, absolutely no on all circumstances.
It's right. So it's more likely if we put a stipulation on it in some part of the process, it go to court or something like that. I'm not saying that that's what we want to do or that's what we should do. I'm trying to have open and honest conversations about some of the concerns I heard from some of our citizens. Probably.
Yes,
Okay.
I will say that amongst the collection of questions that we have too is the scope of conditions.
Okay, that's fair enough. Last thing. We got an email from one of our people that showed a lot of pictures about, people sleeping around town. I think it's fair to say that there are more homeless in the city limits than there's ever been before, whether they're transient or not. I don't know the answer to that. And pictures were provided by that one citizen. This is a rhetorical question. Doesn't an emergency shelter with some small amount of services possibly help that situation, or does it make it worse? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I wanted to throw it out there.
Yeah, I found that the idea of if you have a community that has lots of services, there is the thinking that then you will have lots of homeless people who will take advantage of those services? Or is your thinking that if you have some homeless needy people in your community, aren't you better off providing some services so that that population doesn't grow? So it's, I don't know what happened in Eugene. I don't know whether they had so many nonprofits that everybody went, oh, well, that's the place to go. I don't think that people that are hard up are really searching for what community has the most nonprofits and where should I go to, I don't think that that's a huge motivator. It might be for some people, but I agree. When I got those pictures, I went, well, but won't this homeless shelter advantage that situation? Whereas so many people feel like having an emergency shelter is going to make that situation worse. It's going to get worse if we do nothing. I mean, we can all pretty much agree.
That's guaranteed.
That for a number of years, Deschutes County and the city of Bend and all communities everywhere considered homelessness a social issue that needed to be dealt with in the nonprofit and religious community and not a government problem. And now it's been laid on the government as kind of like the last resort, in the sense that, well, it hasn't been able to be dealt with in any other way. And so what are you going to do about it, government? What are you going to do to save our community, save our communities, and keep them from becoming? And that's what I hear here so much, is how do we keep sisters from becoming? Well, I think having this kind of a shelter is a starting point for keeping us from becoming what has happened. Can I guarantee that? No, I don't. It's not like as if we have a number of communities where you can say, well, they did this at 10 years and so that worked, but if you waited until 15, it was too late. I mean, we just don't have those examples. So it's up to our community to decide, do we want to give this a try? And then we'll see if it helps or not.
And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the conversation is going to continue. This is not the end of anything, so.
Yeah, I had brought up to Jordan in our conversation the other day, do we have the ability to put sideboards, time limits, anything on any permit, that we do approve if one is approved? Because I think that is some of the issue here is that, is there it's like the same thing when we, sign a contract, and not, this is different, but, you know, sign a contract with Explorer Sisters or, you know, some other entity where it's like, okay, we have a 3-year contract and then we review it. Same thing with the garbage company or anything like that. And I mean, obviously, we're not financially involved in this project. But I think that would assuage some fears that if there was a, you know, 3 years out or something, you know, can we, you know, put in something in there saying that, you know, you will need to reapply, or, you know, based on these conditions, if you've met these, you know, I just feel like part of the frustration of many people is that, you know, the woman trying to make the example of, you know, all the nonprofits in Eugene, and I think the point was that there are a lot of options, and there's a lot of carrots, not a lot of sticks. You know, we're in an age of, you know, all of us as Americans, you know, our freedoms, we want our choices, we don't want anybody to tell us what to do. And, you know, but there's sometimes in situations where it's like, look, you're going to participate, if you want help, you're going to participate in this program, you're going to be held to these standards. And, you know, if you don't do that, then you need to, you know, move along. And that's not how a lot of, you know, the world of homeless services has been acting over the last decade. It's been very much, well, if you want to come, we can't make you do anything, but if you want to, you know, and it's, that's not effective. It hasn't been working. There's a lot of times in my life, you know, when I feel like I'm a fully functioning adult where I need choices taken away from me. I need somebody else to make a decision for me, you know, and these are certainly, a lot of these people are, you know, in situations where, you know, a firm handhold and some direction would be fantastic. But I think I'm hearing that, I'm bubbling up in a lot of the messaging, and I'm seeing that it's just, you know, this open-ended side is where a lot of the frustration is coming from. So I'm trying to just, you know, take that and say, okay, how can we make everybody happy? I won't make everybody happy, but yeah, if we do approve this, are there some sideboards that the community can come back and feel comfortable in saying, hey, this happened, and I want some recourse, you know, or nothing happened, we're good to go, you know. But I think that's it. And that's my problem with this whole thing with the state. They took away our power. They're kind of saying, hey, you cities, we don't trust you and your processes. It's a little insulting. But it's also, there's no sunset on this House bill, you know, and that's frustrating as well. That I feel anything needs to have a sunset where you need to revisit and take in information, learn from your mistakes, and move on. So that's just kind of the legal question for either, you know, Scott or Garrett, if that's something that can be possibly integrated into this permit or not. I don't know.
Garrett can't wait to write a contract. He wants to write a contract. No,
Well, I mean,
I kind of get you, but.
Tag on to Jennifer.
Sure.
I kind of agree with you, although I wonder if the side rails or guardrails would be more about the perimeter of the establishment itself, because internally it seems to me that the cold weather shelter has got to run its own cold weather shelter, and without our guidance there. I mean, I don't know anything about doing that, but on the outside, you know, the idea, I think it was you or someone talked about the possibility of fences, or, you know, not wood fences, but maybe railing or something, just to kind of make a perimeter to make the neighbors that live in that community, Clear Pine, feel a little better. I mean, something like that, is it possible to have that kind of requirement by the city?
Are you talking about, well, we would require that the fences be locked, so once people went in there, they could not
just to have the fences so that the access to walking straight back to the Clear Pine would not be possible. They'd have to go around, you know, they have to, in other words, it just limit a little bit. I don't think they should be locked in.
I think that if the cause is noble, we don't need many fences, honestly. So
Okay.
it's a conversation that we're going to continue to have. I'm glad we had it tonight. I got my 10 things in on that stuff. I have one more. I'm going to the Oregon Mayors Association Conference. It's from August 10th to August 12th. That's tomorrow. I got to be there at 9:30 a.m. in Hood River. So I'm going to do that. I need to go home and get some sleep and pack and all that. So, but I do have a list of everybody's going to be there. If anybody's interested, if you need me to network with somebody, I can do that. I'll have Carrie send it out to just in case there's a networking opportunity.
Somebody I know.
Yeah, you know probably some of those
No.
people.
Mm.
9:30 a.m. tomorrow. I'm doing a tour of the city of the Dalles, and it's a mural tour. And I'm really interested in that. I think we could always have more murals if we could get something going. I just think it's cool.